Royston, Clyde, but you'll do.
Thanks. Thanks for that one.
Whoa. Okay.
Great, everyone, and glad that you're able to join us this evening. It's going to be a powerful session. Let us say thanks for us all being here, and also we give thanks to our ancestors who whose heads and shoulders who we are standing on, who's the reason why we are here, because of their tenacity and their courage to keep on going. So I say thank you, Ashe.
Okay.
Also, I give thanks to our leaders in the past, the likes of Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Nanny of the Maroons, etc., etc. I give thanks for them for helping to guide us and put us through a lot of the trials and tribulations that our ancestors have been going through. So they've helped to lead the path and lead the way for us to go forward. So I say thank you, Ashe. I give thanks to my ancestors. You can give thanks to your ancestors for helping you to be the person you are now. So I give thanks to my grandfather, my grandmother, who's always with me, my mother, and my uncle, Ashe. So, and also I give thanks to the Most High, who's created the world that we're actually living in, Ashe. And with that, I'm going to temporarily hand you over to Royston, who's going to let you know about the bits and pieces at the side, about how you make your messages, etc. Royston, over to you.
Hello. All right. So welcome everyone. It's good to keep ourselves muted while the presentations are going on, because the slightest movement echoes and comes across the system. And if you're on a computer, it's on the bottom left-hand corner is your mute, that, you know, invite you to use that function. In the middle of your screen, I'm not sure where it's set on your particular phone, but there's a chat, and in chat you can send a message to everyone, which means everyone sees the message that you've got. It might be a message, it might be a question, and if you want to send a message to someone specific, you can also do that by finding their name, either in the chat list, or if you go to the top right-hand corner of the screen that the person is in, you'll see 3 blue dots. You click on it. One of the options there is chat. You can send that person a message. All right. So that's all I want to say right now. And just to wish you all welcome and have a good evening.
Thank you, Royston. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our first presentation by our brother called Galactic Clyde, who I had the pleasure with, and as I said, Cheryl as well was there this morning, right round to this afternoon, doing some picking of, oh, I forgot the name of it now. Anyway, Galactic Clyde, would you like to introduce yourself? And let me say, the screen is now yours. Oh, before I go, make sure you have your pens and your papers with you, so you can write any questions that come to mind during the presentation. So you can be asking them after in the Q&A section. And also, if you have some water with you to keep yourself hydrated. Thank you. The screen is now yours.
Okay, greetings. Can everybody hear me? Unmute, I'm unmute. Everybody can you hear me? Just Auntie Jean, just put up your hand. Let me know you hear me good.
Yeah,
Loud and clear.
can hear you.
Okay, good. Coming in. Okay, just checking. Do we have all our speakers on?
I just took mine off. I'll put it back off again.
No, not speakers. The one, the people. Do we have Brother Israel Mamiesi? Are they on already? Are they connected? We don't know, yeah?
Not
Okay.
yet. Not just yet.
Okay. Okay, so should I proceed with the lecture? Yeah.
Yeah, because you're on and Siam is next, and he's here.
Okay. All right. Let's do it. Okay, I'm Galactic Clyde. I've been studying astrology since early 90s, around 95, around there, 95, 96. I've studied astrology with an astrology teacher, my astrology teacher, Aisha Grice. She's the one that's been publishing astrology information in Essence magazine. At that time, I was living in the USA. And so I started to take up astrology as a very important study for myself. And now I'm living in the UK. I do a bit of a teaching of astrology. I deal with astrology on a daily basis. I love the whole understanding and processing of knowledge of the heaven in connection to the earth, in connection to us as human, as well as in connection to nature. This is where the plant kingdom comes in, herbology and things of that nature. Because the ancient says, as above, so below. As within, so without. So what is above is the same, also connected with below, and what is within is also interconnected with the outside. Okay? So in other words, I'm an astrologer with over 20 years of study and teaching of astrology. Astrology represents a very important study in the way of understanding the world we live in. The world is anchored at 4 points. This is my concept. The world is anchored at 4 points. Concept, but that's actually what happened. The 4 points of the world that is anchored is called east, west, north, and south. And the center point represents, just like the pyramid, the center point represents the heaven. Yes? And so, so we got east, west, north, and south, and center. But the center point could go up or down, just like a double-sided pyramid, one up and one down. So that means you can as humans, we can climb high to the echelons of the heavens, or we can also stoop low into the dark realms of the earth in that sense. Yes? The choice is ours, even, you know, in that sense. And some people, some of us, we make the wrong choices. And there's reasons for that anyway. However, the most important point, which is the capstone, represents the heaven, the world of the stars, which is unlimited dimensional shift in consciousness. Most time we don't realize how much the heavens plays a major role in our life, and especially for our culture, in our understanding, astrology is downplayed, because most time when we talk about astrology, most people talk about tabloid astrology, and there's a lot more to astrology than what is considered tabloid astrology. Astrology covers all aspects of life. Astrology is actually called the spiritual discipline behind psychology. So psychology, or what we know as psychology in its deeper sense, is astrology, or I should say astrology, psychology and astrology interchange with itself, because you're dealing with the psyche or the soul or the in connection. But today the class is about the astrology of 2019, 2020. A lot has been happening during the late part of 2019 to beginning of 2020. And in 2017, I did a document which I can make available for whoever want that. I did a talk in Monks Park concerning the coming of 2020 and what we should be expected. I actually call it the total restructuring of the world. The reason why I did that talk, because Saturn was getting ready to move into the sign of Capricorn, its home sign. Now, Saturn is a planet that actually have a rotation or a cycle or a spin of 30 years. When he leaves home, journey wherever he goes in a 30-year run around the different signs of the zodiac, around the wheel of the zodiac, and then come back to its homestead in 30 years. You know, if you journey for 30 years and you come back home, the first thing you have to do is take a nice long shower. You know, you have to get all cleanser. You know, the planet does these as well, you know. And in noting Saturn coming back at home in his homestead, I also realized at the same time he's entering home, along with that, we have Pluto sleeping in his bed or in his home sign, and we have Mercury retrograde. So I look at those in connection and realize that now Saturn come home to make another 30-year journey. But what we call in astrology an ingress, his 30-year journey, sorry, my phone, his 30-year journey represents, or I should say, will have Mercury retrograde in the mix. Yes, and also Pluto in its homestead. So I look at the connection with what was happening in connection to, that means Saturn is come back home and is setting off a new 30-year journey. And the new 30-year journey would have a Mercury retrograde in it. Now, today is the 19th of June, and it's called Juneteenth. But not only that, we also have Mercury in retrograde. Now, Mercury in astrology is considered the planet of communication. Everything for Mercury is like big talk, little talk, everything to do with talk, everything to do with communication. Yes? And so we know that when a planet goes retrograde, it actually works on the inner plane, but it means us also we're reconnecting, we're redo, we are wheel and come again, all these things that we need to do, we're rethinking. And astrologically, actually, right now where we are, there's about 5 planets in retrograde. So it means that we're dealing with a lot of internal turmoil where we actually have to be connecting with ourselves, or connecting to issues of the past, or issues that we have not dealt with, or issues that we need to sort out in order to move on. So, and this reflects on all sectors of life in that sense, in connection to where the planet is located, house and sign. Yeah. Going back to Saturn, why Saturn? Why I'm talking about Saturn as the first kickoff to the whole thing? Well, it's important to understand that the planet Saturn, some people say Satan because the word Saturn interchange Satan, because it's the lord of karma. But Saturn, the planet, also represents in its homestead, it represents structure, it represents karma, it represents in astrology what we call our life lessons. And all of these comes under the heavy hand of Saturn, especially when he's home. But there's something else that also it represents, which is very important: governments. Saturn represents government. Saturn represents all the contracts of the world is under the hands of Saturn. Just like in our African stories, we say all the stories are Anansi stories. They all belongs to Anansi. And who's Anansi? Anansi is a metaphor for Mercury. Yeah, so even in our African understanding of stories, mythologies, prophecies, the planet plays a major role, not in the sense of the Western understanding of the planet, but more in African standpoint. So I always said, if you're going to study Africa and you're looking for a planetary system, you better off look into the deity system, because the planets in ancient time were deified as the gods. They're the powers that above the powers of man. And so they look at the planets as the gods. So when you're looking at the different mythology and the different ancient writing, you would see relation to Yamaya or Batala and different names which represents deity in our system, or the deity system, but it's also referred to the planets. It's not that we don't have names. In many of the different languages in Africa, we have different names for the planet. But mostly they are deified. Yes, and actually you may say this is kind of far-fetched, but to actually, if we go into our modern system, into the religion, we realize that in Christianity, that what we refer to, or what people refer to as Jesus, is a deification of the Son in a human form. So the whole story of Jesus or Christ is actually referring to the S-U-N. Yes, And so all of these things are part of the ancient language coming back to us in many ways, some coded and some uncoded. Most of the time, the information is actually coded, sometimes sugar coated as well. Okay, so it's important for us to realize these things. Yes, let me continue down the road. Are you getting any noise back feeding back to you, Auntie Jean? Just checking. Just give me a heads up if any. Yeah.
Just a little rustling, but not nothing terrible.
Okay, no, because my daughter left the door open and yeah, children. Anyway, let's move on. So I was going back to where we're discussing with Saturn. Once I saw Saturn moving into Capricorn, and we did the talk on Saturn in Capricorn, I coined the phrase. This is a new phase that not being in the astrological data in the sense of what is called a worldwide Saturn return. In astrology, we have the concept of Saturn return, but we don't really talk about a worldwide Saturn return. And actually, the last time Saturn was in his homestead, I did not, I wasn't aware, I wasn't really studying astrology in that sense, which is 30 years. So I'm a 20-something years studying astrology, not 30 years. So I didn't have no way of classifying or understand that. But at this time, I will look at this, wow, worldwide Saturn return, because Saturn comes back at home and he have to deal with personal issues. He is the man of karma, have to deal with self-analysis issues, dealing on its own development. And so I looked at that representing government, represents business on a large scale or all the scales. And especially in Saturn coming home, meeting another planet, Pluto, the planet of what they call the underworld, the planet of restructuring, or the planet of what they call the underworld or transformation. I know that looking at those two planets are a part of the makeup for the next 30-year cycle in terms of what we call an ingress. It's almost like two big shot meet up, yes? And they meet up based on a plan, a 30-year plan. So if we understand the nature of the two big shot, we could understand what the nature of the 30-year plan is going to be. Yes, because one might be a money shark, one might be, say, a developer. So we know that there's going to be a lot of money invested in development. So this is how we look at astrology when we do a kind of mathematical calculation when we're looking at two planets conjuncting or working together as team. And so this is what we're looking at, Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn as a team. So we know that Pluto is about transformation, is about churning, is about turning things up, is about digging deeper and turning over things. So I look at this and say, ooh, this is a worldwide restructuring. Yes. And so for most of the astrology, all of our astrologists understand what I'm talking about in connection to the nature of the planet and what it would represent, where it is in the home or where it is in the sign that it is. So yes, a total restructuring by 2020, and I actually said it, January 2020, will have that whole total restructuring of the world, and this is where we are. And especially for our community, it's important for us to understand what the regulators or the regulation of the heavens in connection to where we are as human in that sense. Sometimes we may get caught up in new world order, new world disorder, what they call it, illusions or plans that they don't have, that they pretend that they have. But if we look more deeper into the heavens as the real regulators, we'll have a better understanding of where things are and where we're headed. Yes? And so we're in a total restructure in the world. Also goes on to look at the ingress for the spring. I'm moving forward. The ingress for the spring, and I said, oh, the ingress for the spring, the ruler of the ingress for the spring is Mars. Yes, and I'm going to digress a little back on that, because when I started to look at the connection with Mars this year, I realized that this is what I classify as a spicy 2020. So those of you might familiar with the document that I put out on YouTube called Spicy 2020, Galactic Clyde Spicy 2020, because I said this year is very spicy, because you have a planet such as Mars is going to be exalted around January, February. Mars going to be exalted in Capricorn for the first 2 months of the year, and then as it moves down into Aries, which is just gonna coming into Aries this month, it's gonna stay in Aries for 7 months, 6 to 7 months. So this is a planet that moves from 2 months each in a sign. Yes, goes 2 months in a sign, 2 months in a sign, and then once every so often, every two and a something year, it stays for 6 to 7 months in a sign. And so I said, ooh, with Mars in a power position in Capricorn and in another power position where it's going to stay for 7 months, this is going to be spicy. It's going to be very hot, because Mars deals with heat. Mars is actually, I talk about Mars in the sense that I said, even the herbs that represent Mars are very spicy. Well, when they're not spicy, are hot or protective or aggressive in that sense. And I'm talking about one plant such as the stinging nettle. That's a Mars plant. You touch it, it shows you war. It says, yeah, I'm going to bite you back. You know, things like that. So we look at planets in connection, and then we can see what to expect for the year in terms of that. We, as astrologers, we look at the ingress, which is the equinox and solstice, meaning the 4 points or the 4 cardinal points that the earth is anchoring is called equinox and solstice points, which is east and west is the equinox, north and south is the solstice. So we right on the tip of a solstice point, which is right on the 1920, tomorrow begin the solstice, which is what we call the summer solstice. Yes, so I was going back, let me go back now to Mars entering, soon to be entering Aries this month. Now Mars in Aries is home. And Mars in Aries, we call them the race car drivers. They're hot tempered, they're fast moving, because Mars is a powerful fire sign and it's very always on the go. So we're looking at a hot summer coming. Yes, because we have the Mars, which is very considered more active, because it's in its own element, it's in its own sign, but it's also dealing, because when it's in its own element, in its own sign, that means it's given more weight, you have more power, just like me and you at home have more power than at a stranger's house or someplace else, because this is our house. Who dare come challenge me at home? You know what I mean? So it's like that. So Mars moving into Aries at the last I think it's the 29th or 29th of this month, means that we're moving to a high intense fire energy. And what makes it even more higher intense is that from the first week in July, because I don't know for my timing, so I'm going to move forward. For the first week in July, meaning around the 10th of July to the 2nd of September, we got what is called a blue castle. This is dealing with the Mayan system, because I study astrology, but there's different system of astrology that I study, such as the Mayan Olmec system, which deals with the Zolkin system, and I also study also the playing card system, which is also based on astrology. And in the Mayan system, I always look from year to year of the blue castle, because the blue castle is called the castle, the court of chaos and transformation. It's always chaotic when we're going to the blue castle. And when I find somebody whose birthday or birth cycle is connected with the blue castle, it's always something chaotic for the changes, chaos and transformation that they go through. So I see that in people's birth chart when I'm looking at their birth chart, but I also see it in the yearly cycle as it happens every 260 days, so for 52 days straight. Yes, so it's very like upbeat in terms of changes, chaos and transformation. So this gonna kick in around July, taking us right to September. So we're having a long hot summer, and all this time this is happening, Mars is gonna be in Aries. And we also have Mercury retrograde kicking off, and the different planets that retrograde. So we have lots coming down the issue that 2020 is a very hot, some people say galactic Clyde, it's gone past spicy this year. So even though I did spicy 2020, the first half of the year, and I'm planning to do the second half of the year or quarter based on so much things happening, the people said to me, Galactic, you can't say spicy. You got to add something else to it because it's more than spicy year in that sense. But yes, it's been spicy, it's been hot, it's been something else. And all of this is also, we can explain this from an astrological movement of the planets and what is happening. And that's the beauty and the power and the duty of astrology, to help us to understand as above, so below, as within, so without. Give me a time breakdown, Auntie Jean, so I don't really, so I could gauge where we are. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is 20 minutes. If we want to allow 10 minutes for questions, then you should wind up now.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, on top of that,
see where you go.
Yes, on top of that, you know, we have a major conjunction of 2 planets that's coming in also around December going into January. And that's the planet of one Saturn, which is the planet of karma and restriction, is considered in astrology. And then the, Jupiter, the planet of expansion. The 2 comes together. So when you have expansion, when you have restriction and expansion, you have what? Explosion. So this year, as we're coming into that, because this normally also as astrologers, we look at the cycles that's coming in, we start seeing the silver lining before the even activities. And so so we have some big change coming in this year, because this year is a game changer. It's a game changer for our personal life as well as our transpersonal life, government, and all business and all aspects of our life. And so it's important for us to understand that those people whose birthday fall between the cycle of what I call the 52-day blue castle, or the castle of chaos and transformation, you need to be aware that this energy would be anchors in your life because of the ingress, because of your birthday ingress with that happening. It will be anchor for the whole year. Just like anybody whose birthday fall on the Mercury retrograde or the retrograde planets as we're happening now, that means that energy is anchored with you for the whole year. Yes. And so you need to be aware of certain changes or things that you may have logging in your life that you may need to speed up and sort out. Then do that and get it over with. Don't keep anything in the closet in that, because these planets, when we go into retrograde, they flush out the stuff we have in the closet. The door just fling open and it's like, wow, I didn't know you have skeleton there. Or you have Mr. Bush there, you have whatever, you know, things like that. You know, the door opened wide and you got to address the problem, deal with it. Otherwise, it would deal with you. Yes. So I'll just summarize there and just open for any questions or what have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody got any questions? Anything? Okay, what is the time?
Yes, I do. Hi.
Hi.
Nkechi. How are you?
Nkechi, how are you? Yes, great.
Yeah, I didn't quite get just now you said about the birthdays within this time. I didn't quite get the months you were talking about.
Okay, from July, the first week in July, I think July 10th to September 2nd. Those birthdays that fall within that, what they call the blue castle of chaos and transformation, to expect some major shifting as we're going to that, and your birthday fall in that. Niv, close the door. I'm busy, please.
Okay. So if your birthday is just outside of that, like mine's the 5th of September, yeah, do you get some of the fallout of that?
No, if your birthday is outside, then you're outside the fence. You don't got to worry. You're not fenced in by the energies.
Okay.
But if your birthday fall within the fence of changes that is happening, or the influence of the planets, especially the retrograde planets, the blue castle of chaos and transformation, expect some levels of changes that would happen, manifest. For some, a lot of times, because it's chaos, is chaotic. Yeah. and some people experience major shifting. I've done some research about some people that pass, and there's a lady that did the love triangle. She committed suicide. She was actually in the blue castle of chaos and transformation. Yes, and she was in the first 10 years of that cycle. She didn't do all 52, but she was in that cycle. She committed suicide because of all the problems that she was having in her life. I look at Nipsey Hussle. I looked at his chart. Nipsey Hussle, when he was born, he born 1 year before the beginning of the Blue Castle. The year after his birth, he enters the 52 years of the Blue Castle experience. So his life, somewhat, we can look at it, we'll see very much chaotic with all the stuff, and he died within that cycle, within the 52-year cycle, because the cycle represents 52 days as well as 52 years. But that's a deeper understanding in terms of the astrology. Okay. So on the personal level, when I do reading, I look at that for people when I do the astrology chart for people. There's somebody else, the brother that died with his daughter plane crash. I don't say that it's always lead to death. I'm just showing you how chaotic and how mixed up, and how a lot of changes. I know some people who are surviving and they say, Clyde, my life being hell, but it's also helping me to understand more of the deeper connection that I have with source. So therefore, your life is going through certain churning for the better. And so don't always think that it's going to be it's a death sentence. I'm just using that to show an example how rough it can be for people. But it's not always rough. Sometimes this is the time of spiritual awakening for a lot of people.
Yeah. So really, what you're saying, it's like forewarned is forearmed, really.
Yes, it's like that. You're better off with an umbrella if it's going to be a heavy shower of rain than not knowing there's a shower of rain and you're not prepared.
So listening to you is a sense that all this is meant to happen. It's going to happen, so we shouldn't worry about it because it's going to happen anyway.
No.
In terms of forces.
Yes, certain things gonna happen, but it's how we operate, how our understanding, our reaction can change things. Prayers, meditation, herbologies, all these things can add weight to what we do. Somebody's going to a medical difficulty because of issues in their life. Yes, that is happening, but what they can do to change it, or who can help them, will help them to benefit, then just says, well, this is what I have to go to. There's nothing I can do. No, there's always things we can do. But the thing about it is important to note where we at in the time square. It's almost like we're dropping a major city and we don't know nothing about the city. Well, we should start looking at a map or start asking questions so that we can navigate, because some of us might say, oh yeah, you got your wallet out, your bulk out, somebody can rob you. So if you know where you're at, because I remember I was working last year with this brother, and he said, I'm from South Africa, South African white. And he said, I'm from South Africa, and I went down in the Caribbean, and every minute I'm clutching my wallet and I'm worried because I'm around all this black guy. And he said, one guy pulled him up and said, don't worry, man, we're all right around here. We're not going to be like that, because he have this kind of edgy feeling from other areas of the other place that they come from, So sometimes it's good to know your territories. And most times in our life, we don't even know anything about the territory. We don't know whether we're going to a full moon, new moon, first quarter, last quarter cycle. We don't know where we're having major conjunction in our life in terms of planet. We don't know whether we're having retrograde. We don't know what's going on. But if we know these things, it can help us navigate.
All right.
Because these are the influence.
Thank you. Time for a couple more questions.
Anybody else?
So let me add to that. So we're talking about the center point here, the heavens. So the 4 points of the earth is where we're anchored as physical being. But there's another part of us that is not anchored. That is our soul, which links us up to the heavens. And that's the important link that we want, is to connect or reconnect.
Thank you.
Anyone else got a question?
Or make a statement.
Yeah, I have a question. Greetings, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, Brother Clyde, you indicated that the Blue Castle appears to be bringing us into a bit of a rough ride in terms of where we are on the global planet.
Every time we go to the Blue Castle, it's always chaos and transformation. And if those people remember,
Hold on,
sorry,
Clyde.
answer your question.
Hold on,
Sorry.
Clyde. Hold on, let her finish the question, please.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it sounds like it's bringing us into a rough ride, and we've already
I thought you knew. I thought I
been
told you so many times.
through rough months as it is, but it seems like it's going to get, as you said, hot and spicy. I was thinking about, you know, what is the best way to deal with the ride on an everyday basis. And the second part of the question is, for those that are born in the last couple of months, what's the best way to support them through this really challenging time?
Children that are just born, they are very much okay. Let's see, which should I go first? Yes, it's spicy. It's getting hotter, and it's getting hotter because we're in a major turning point in terms of changes based on the influence of the heavens, because the cycles based on the Mayan, based on the astrology from the different aspects are telling us that this is a major shifting. Like, for instance, we're in a 52-year shift that started back in 1968, which I call the synchronic code. And in January, I laid out that the synchronic code for this year is similar to 1968. And I started talking about Martin Luther King. Now, everybody's talking about the connection with Martin Luther King because of what happened the other day. But it just shows you that these codes brings us back into the flow in terms of things that needs to be dealt with. But in terms of children that are born now, they also have they come with a certain power for the time frequency that they're in. One of the ways that it's important that we deal with these children is not to allow this mass vaccination. The vaccination has been sent by a lot of doctors now are coming out and speaking the truth about what the damage of the vaccination for children, because the damage of the vaccination stops them from connecting or reconnecting with the power, the source that they've come from, the source of their soul consciousness. And so we have to be careful of the dietary system that they put on, and even the game system and the radiation. And one of the things that, you know, what we were doing today is picking up ginkgo leaf, which is a powerful anti-radiation herb. And so we have to also be mindful of the environment in connection with the children that are being born and how much they're exposed to the radiation, and what we need to do to help deal with that on their behalf.
Thank you. So there's time for one more question with a very short answer. Anyone else?
No, everybody's quite quiet out there.
Okay.
Patricia?
Go ahead.
I know, I mean, I'm able to connect with you, Clyde, but I think you need to give out your information to people so they can, you know, follow up if they want readings and stuff from you.
Okay, yes, I'm Galactic Clyde. I'm on well, I'm not on Facebook anymore.
Can you put it in chat, or do you want me to do that for you?
Okay, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, right. Yes, I put my email in chat and my phone number. Yes, I can do that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, great.
Auntie Jean?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Clyde. Very informative. And I know people would want to hear more. So obviously you've got to come back, all right? So moving on now to our next presentation is from a brother called Siam Karoom. And Siam Karoom is multi-dimensional. So Siam, I'm gonna move over to you now and introduce you. Who's there? The screen is now yours, Siam.
Okay, well, greetings to everyone, one and all. Thank you for setting this, arranging this for us all to be able to converse and share insight that can assist in each one of us in our transition through this time. Yes, a little background with me. I mean, wow. Let me just do a quick thing. Y'all see this? This is my chart. Triple Grand Trine in water, Mercurian, 29 degrees, stellium in Pisces. Clyde will understand all of that. And there's a lot of water here. Sagittarius ascendant, Pluto, Uranus conjunct in Virgo. which began this new cycle that we're in. We're experiencing a continuation of this conjunction that took place in 1964 with Pluto and Uranus conjunct in Virgo. Now I'm going to come back to that in a sec, but there's a little background with myself. I've always been interested in more of the esoteric science of life. I've always seek to know the deeper inner meaning rather than just being on the surface and you know, the mundane side of the stuff. So astrology has been something that I've always been drawn to from a youngster, teenager, and so forth. And I would say I'm an eclectic learner, so to speak. I draw from different models. I don't just stick with one model, because everything is interconnected and you need to understand yourself in more of a broader context, more like cosmological, metaphysical, you know, these terminologies, rather than just looking on the earth plane to understand the context you play within the larger scheme of life, the cosmos, okay? So I was always into these deeper esoteric things. And to cut long story short, because we don't have much time, I came to, you see, some of us, when we come in here, what I find astrology is basically your soul map, yeah? So in the West, we have astrology presented to us more on a personality level. So many people are thinking about, you know, which sun signs are compatible. People are thinking about more about what the ego personhood wants to achieve in life. And it's this kind of outwardness and trajectory. And a lot of people also have been given the impression that astrology controls you, you know? It's this external thing. You got to look at the planets every day. You got to see where the moon is and this and that. And, you know, before you can step out your house. And this is a misunderstanding of it. So what astrology is, if you look at it, astrology, because I break down into words, I go into various, as I said, I'm an eclectic learner. I deal with the different sciences. I deal with symbols a lot. I deal with etymology a lot. And these give you deeper insights to go past your condition or programming by the world. So you can get insight. That's the whole thing about, you know, insight is basically you're tuning in to the vision or the consciousness, intuitive intelligence of your soul. So for me, astrology basically is like your manual, your self-manual kit, because it indicates your evolutionary soul journey. Because we incarnate into this, we incarnate as the form is born, but who you are is never born. You are pure consciousness. And that word is thrown around a lot. And it gets misconstrued because it's more than just simply being aware of what you're aware of in so-called waking consciousness. This is dealing with more about your soul's evolution or your soul's evolutionary journey. And when we're on this plane, a lot of people just so caught up in the mundane, earthly, physical conditioning, they don't realize that the very purpose and the reason why they're here is because of their soul's purpose. You're here because of your higher self. Without your higher self, which is another way of saying your oversoul or higher consciousness of yourself, which is your soul, which is above the human or earthly realm of thinking and rationalization and the limited perspective that we get confined in when we just, you know, use earthly terminologies, labels that we use to define ourselves. These things keep you in this box and keep you from expanding your consciousness to encompass the greater reality of yourself. So for me, every astrologer, there's, you know, because it's such a deep science, it's a super science. And Clyde said, you mentioned about the origin of psychology came out of astrology. That is very true. The 12 houses of the zodiacus, which means the wheel of life or the disc of life. This is where the psychology, studying of the psyche, which is the membrane, you can say, between your soul and your mind, okay, your thinking apparatus. And what it is that the study of your psyche is so important, hence psychology, the study of your psyche, ology, study, psyche. And the astrology enables you to understand yourself. This is about self-knowledge. Know thyself. It was written on the Karnak walls on the temples, ancient Kemet, they call Egypt. It was written, man, know thyself. This is where the Greeks got it from. But you've got man, know thyself. The full rendition is, and you will know the universe and the creative forces of life. So this is what knowing thyself is. It's bringing you to the essence of your source of being and the source of all being and who you are. So you start with source, because without source, there's no ancestors, there's no individualized existence, there's no experience that you having as an individualized expression of source. So there is a saying in the scriptures when it says, seek first the kingdom of the Most High, and all else shall be added unto thee. Most High is symbolizing the source of your being. So if you don't know yourself, you are going to be very confused in this world, and you become more susceptible to the worldly programming. It even says in the scriptures where it says, be not conformed by this world, be not conformed by the world, but be renewed through the transformation of your mind. Yeah. So these are the deeper esoteric inner, not surface, exoteric, like superficial wounds. If you was to go to A&R, they will, and you had a superficial cut, they don't really pay attention to you. But if it's a deep cut, deep, yeah, then they say, this is serious. The deeper the roots go, the higher the branches reach. So the depth is really getting to the reality of who we are rather than dealing with the surface layer, which keeps you in easily to be controlled and manipulated by what we would say the world, okay? The outerness. So I deal with astrology from the soul evolutionary perspective, because your soul is who you are. This mind and body is the vehicle that your soul is having experience through. You are pure consciousness, and consciousness is life. It's the life force energy, which permeates and pervades everything, hence universal consciousness or the universal spirit, okay? So what's coming through me now to say is that we are going through a transition from an old paradigm to a new paradigm. We are coming out of the age of Pisces and moving into the age of Aquarius. In fact, you know, when Saturn fully enters back into Aquarius, this will be, I think, on the 18th of December. This is when you are going to have, you can say, yo, this is it. You are in the Aquarius energy, and you got to learn the lessons which Saturn represents as you move through the new energy, the new era, the new paradigm. So what's happening is you're having a resistance where the old paradigm, Pisces represented each paradigm, each sign also represents an age, okay? Meaning that it lasts for 2,150 years. So it takes to round it up to 1,000, to the closest 100, you've got 26,000 years for a complete cycle around the disk of life. And the disk of life in ancient Kemet and in, you can see in Greek, because they got it from ancient Kemet, things get kind of diluted when it goes into Roman stuff, but when you can trace the roots, you can be able to understand you still be able to get the truth, because the truth is in everything. But it's just that when it goes further away from the source, we can get a lot of furthermore misinterpretations, okay? So the wheel, the disc of life, just want to correlate this so you can appreciate this in a more integrated way. You can take it first, you know, you can see how it connects to you. The disc, the circle, 360 degrees, the zodiac, when you look at all the signs from Aries to Pisces, they represent and correlate aspects of your own body. In yoga, there is the posture called the Shenu, or some will say the wheel, you know? Well, in Kemet, you got the 360 degrees of the circle, what you call the zodiac. It was in the depiction of Asar's body, okay? So when we talk about the correspondence, the lower correspondence, as within, so without, as above, so below, this is dealing with also the micro and the macrocosm of yourself. So astrology is the study of the star within you. And you know, you hear the term, hey, star, you know, the rest of us say, what star? Or you have people want to be famous and they want to be a star. You know, you hear that, you're a star, wishing on a star, lucky star. Well, all stars are suns, and you are the star, okay? And it's the study of the star within you, which is your light body. You hear the thing about the light beings, you hear these terminologies. Well, when before, originally, the source, absolute consciousness, we're dealing with formlessness, formless awareness. And the first form that manifests from the formless or unformed, it takes form of light. So this is why they say sons are first born out of the universe. Nun, the cosmic ocean, the primordial ocean of consciousness, Ra, is birthed out of Nun. Out of the sun comes the planets, and the planets are considered wandering stars. That's the term they have for it. So really, your light being, your light body is your soul, solar system. All of this is correlated to that which gives life. What the sun is to this planet, your soul is to you and the whole of creation, because the creative principle was always you. In the Piscean age, it was more of, when you're dealing with the duality of the fish, where you see Pisces and the fish, you got these two fishes tied together, or they're connected. And what it is that one of the fish represents the spiritual, the other represents the mundane or the earthly. But these two fishes are joined and they originate from the same source, just like spirit and matter. Spirit and matter are the same thing, differing at cycles per second of frequency, of vibration. The faster something vibrates, the more subtle it becomes. The slower something vibrates, the more gross and, you know, solid and tangible it becomes. This is all of what it means. But in what we've been caught up in is this teaching of separation, that you're separated from source, and that, you know, spirit and matter is separate, you know, this separativeness. And for the last 2,150 years, we've been caught up in an institutional deception, okay? Because Pisces can also represent deception, illusion, okay? When you're looking outside of yourself for the truth or the ultimate meaning of life, or the ultimate meaning to who you are. So this is where people can become delusional, because they're projecting what they're looking for, that they should find within themselves, on the outside. And if you transfer your energy to these objects or these symbols of worship, because religion is very strong within the Pisces era as well. So what it has been done with the duality is we've been in a paradigm where we've been deceived, because we're looking up in the sky for a God. We're looking outside of ourselves to external authorities and transferring our power, our energy, to these external authorities, where we have the institutions like religion and politics, okay? And these become you can say, the mind programmers, okay? So So we're moving out of that paradigm and we're moving into Aquarius. Aquarius represents freedom, liberation, and the awareness where you have to come into individuation. It's not about being conforming to groups and group beliefs and looking for your identity within groups or institutions, because these have been basically organized, you can say mind control portals, yeah? And now when we're dealing with Aquarius, Aquarius represents freedom and liberation. And it also represents the expression of the individual uniqueness that you are. The opposite sign, the polarity point to Aquarius is Leo. Leo on the higher esoteric level represents your own inner unique light. But Aquarius now represents you shining, getting in touch with that inner unique light of yours, and to also acknowledge your own individual uniqueness, because you are an individual unique expression of source, which is being called creator, God, and what term, and so forth. So we're in a time where there's a struggle, in a sense, where there's those who want to hold on to the old paradigm and those who want to actually move into the new. And the energy of the old paradigm is not going to be the same energy to support the new paradigm, which is Aquarius, okay? Aquarius represents the pouring forth of the water of life, and it represents the circulation of the blood in your body and the water in your cells. It's very important to have the right amount of water, hydration in your cells, okay? And so astrology is really the study of you. And when you think of these planets, understand these planets as aspects of powers within you. Because astrology also correlates to, you can say, what's the other term? Astrotheology, okay? Because when you're dealing with the 12 disciples, you're dealing with the 12 signs. When you're dealing with the 13th sign of Ficus, which is the serpent handler, that's you, right? You're the 13th point, and you got the 12 cranial nerves in your brain. This is when you understand correspondence, okay? So the 12 cranial nerves in your brain corresponds to the 12 apostles, the 12 disciples. You see, 12 is the number of divine governance, okay? So Pisces, even though we're coming out of the age of Pisces, Pisces represents source, but also Pisces end up representing the beliefs that we were indoctrinated with to make you believe you're separate from source. So we are moving into a time of really, it's about unity consciousness. And what I mean by that is that where you realize that unity takes place within yourself. It is not something that is about agreeing to a group ideology necessarily and finding unity within group ideology, or even when, all right, let's talk about our skin color. Yeah, this is a surface. This is surface. Yes, it's melanin and it has its properties like chlorophyll, where we are able to absorb the light frequencies from the sun and transform them into, that information, because all information is light, and to transform that into information into creative inspiration. You see, because inspiration means to be filled up with the desire that makes you want to create that which you're inspired, okay, and moves you, okay, from your beingness to then do, right? Many of us are caught up in doing a lot, but we don't want to deal with beingness. And everything begins from your being, okay? You feel inspired now to do, right?
So can I just say you got about 10, so it's 20 minutes gone. You got another 10 minutes.
20 minutes just now.
Just now, just like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say everything real. There's
So
a lot
if you want to wind up to get some questions, then do that.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So what I'm saying is that we're dealing with a big shift in consciousness. We're moving out from the old or the old form of consciousness arrangement to a higher state of consciousness, okay? So what we see going on in the world, the establishment, where Pluto, when Pluto, Saturn and Pluto conjuncted on the 12th of January, this is when we got the bam, you know, this event, this COVID, all of what's not, and you're getting the shutting down of the establishment, because Capricorn can represent the establishment. What I'll quickly say is that don't get caught up in the beliefs, the fear-based beliefs. Don't get caught up in those programs, because Mercury going retrograde in Cancer, understanding the symbology of Mercury. Mercury is quicksilver. Mercury symbolizes the electricity moving through your brain. It's the life force. And how you direct your thoughts is basically, our thoughts become translated into chemistry that can either cure or create disease. A disease caused by thought is not because the body is defective, it's because the signal is inappropriate. Inappropriate signals that we are sending, right? That communicates with every cell in our body through the nervous system is either constructive or non-constructive, okay? We have the power within ourselves to cure ourselves, electrochemically cure diseases, or we end up poisoning ourselves because we don't realize the power of our own thoughts or the thoughts that we choose to focus our attention on. So we're having a reset. Like if you're gonna put in a new software in a computer, you need to shut it down, okay? Then install the software and reboot it up. So, and then allegorically, this is what's going on here now. But what's also coming out is, you see the code. Virus is the virus inside of people. Their toxic thoughts and feelings and emotions based on the beliefs that they're holding on to with misidentification. That keeps you in the victimhood and in 3D frequency consciousness. And you hear about 5D. These are other levels of dimensions of consciousness where you experience yourself as oneness, as pure spirit, and realize there's only two choices, love or fear. Love is the unity consciousness. Love is not the sentimental stuff that we get caught up in and, you know, possession, control, manipulation. That ain't the love. That's all more the ego personhood attempt to try to seek security externally, yeah? Rather than seek it inside themselves. They're looking and attached to things outside as sources of their pleasure and joy and safety. And all of this is coming into question now, because transformation of values, Uranus in Taurus, and also the transmutation of this power of the soul. Pluto represents your soul, evolutionary energy, and Aries is the way you express that desire coming from your soul, okay? All your desires come from your soul, but it's the choices you make. Choice to create from oneness, the love, which is the creative energy of life, which is your soul, which is the light being you are, or to create from fear and separation, believing in the ideas of you being disconnected from source. And therefore, what ends up happening is that you create from duality. So what you experience, you may get what you want, but you got the drama with it too. You see what I mean? So we are the ones who are really, it's about understanding the creator is the creative consciousness in you. It's not something external to you. And as long as we believe in that and don't seek to know, well, what is God? What is really the source of life? What is the creator, right? By asking these questions, we can go beyond the limited terminologies that keep us entrapped through fear, right? And all of these contradictions and hypocrisy. And we will come home to realize the infinite, multi-dimensional, eternal reality of ourselves. Because this body is basically just a focal point for where consciousness is experiencing itself through in this incarnation.
I need to land you in order to give people a chance to ask you a question.
Sure, absolutely.
Otherwise, we'll never hit the runway.
I hear you, bro.
Okay, thank you.
I'm taking off a bit.
It's amazing. We can listen to you all day, but just to allow others to get a question in.
Yeah,
thank you.
Sure, yes.
So who's got a question?
Anybody got any questions?
Hi, yeah. Can I ask again, when did you say the end of Pisces? end and when the beginning of Aquarius, the age of Aquarius, will start again? What dates did you say?
Well, when we're dealing with each age of each sign, there are at least 2,150 years. So when you deal with the Mayan calendar denoted that the end of the old cycle and what they consider the end of the world, or the end of the world the way we knew it, happened in 2012. So that was a completion of a cycle. And prior to that, they didn't know what else was going to happen because they couldn't see, they wasn't in that energy yet. So they couldn't predict to say, okay, so what's going to happen next? So in 2012, you notice they try, all of this big pandemonium, this big, people are getting all, funny the way they was promoting this 2012, the end of the world and all of that stuff. And that's to program you. That's to program you with, with ideas that's contrary to the truth, right? So since 2012 to now, we're dealing with 18 years, okay? So what's been happening is this transition taking place from 2012. But you see, when you deal with time in the Gregorian calendar, for example, the Ethiopian calendar is like 2008, 7 or 8 now, which would be 2012 or 2013. Do you understand? So when we're dealing with time in a linear way, we have to also be aware that how we're experiencing time now is like almost timeless. The days are merging into one another, okay? The frequencies on the planet have risen because this is a cosmic event. This is not just an earthly situation, but it's how you ride the wave that determines where you end up, you see, because you are the creator. You're the creative principle, you're the creative intelligence. And that may be too much for a lot of people to maybe accept because it means self-responsibility. We can't blame, some imaginary creative principle separate to us for our lives. We are the creative principle. You cannot be different from the nature of your source if you agree that we all come from an absolute originating source of all of existence. Yeah. So we're moving into Aquarius, where we moved into it through some years, but I feel the official activation of that is when Saturn enters into Aquarius on the, what did I say? I think the 18th of December, when it fully goes in, and it's not going to come back out until what, 2003. So there's going to be a big lesson in individuation and a lot of stuff to do with groups, social groups, and are you gonna define your identity based upon the groups, or are you gonna look within yourself to know who am I as an individual expression of source? And knowing that some people think being an individual is like, oh, you're just thinking about you and yourself and not about other people. That's another con, because you need to know yourself first. There's no we before there's an I. And you have to deal with the eternal I that is within us all, which true identity is one with source and the nature as of source, which is love energy, which is the creative energy of life.
So pause you. Let's hear another question, please.
Did I answer your question though? I did, and a bit more, yeah?
Yes.
That was good enough. That was good enough for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there another question?
My question,
Patricia.
Xiaomi, is to do with what is happening on the external in terms of Black Lives Matters.
Yeah.
And what is happening for us individually in terms of us recognizing that there needs to be a shift in the consciousness of our people in order for us to move forward. So do you see a correlation there?
Yes, there is, because what we see outside is a metaphorically also representative of what's going on inside of ourselves. How we react to what we see outside is given an indication of where you are or where you're not, based on the vibration you're holding. So the things, it's like a purge. What's going on is a detox, you can say. So if for there to be any healing, for there to be any clearing, what's within has to come up to the surface in order to be transmuted and dispersed, right? In order for one to receive more light of awareness, more light of consciousness into every cell, okay? So what is also correlating with the inside that we see reflecting on the outside is the need for a serious, like as I said, we're shifting into another state of consciousness. So you can't carry the old paradigm and the old beliefs and the old perception that we have been, you know, living in up to this point. Something very intense has happened to alter the perception, the way people are perceiving reality. You know, people want to go back to the norm. Like, what's the norm? You know, thinking things cannot be done in any other way. And then now you find things can be done in other ways, you see? So it's what, when we think about the collective, you have to understand that you got a collective as groups, and you got a collective consciousness based on the people on the planet. And what moves through the collective consciousness also moves through the individuals. But what moves through the individuals now, at the individual level, you have power to not be caught up like a leaf in the breeze and just blown anywhere, okay? Because the collective thought field is flowing through you when moment you go on social media, the moment you switch on to certain things, you're going onto a platform where you're dealing with collective thought fields, and they swarm into you. And you have to have the individuation, enough of light of awareness to indicate, to be aware to yourself, hang on, is this thought mine? You know, is this the way I choose to feel? Because what's going on in the collective is in ways like the herd, the fear-based reaction to a lot of what's going on. And if you're not if you don't disconnect your like umbilical cord from the collective, you won't have enough light of awareness to direct your own ship, because you're getting caught up with the vibrations of the collective. So there is a lot of things that need to change, and the big main one is stop being a victim, because it's a victim program. And these things are coming up to kind of make you see, look how you look at this stuff. What are the stuff happening with that George Floyd? And these, you know, I have to say that these things, everything you see is not what it appears to be. Mm-hmm. Because you've got events being taken place to manipulate people, all right, in their mind and where they direct their life force energy. But in this time, as a black people, as a label we call it ourselves, you have to wake up to the divine within you, and you got to come out of these programs of victimhood, because where you're giving your energy to is what you're empowering. And the deep state, these terms that's come up, is showing you the deep hypnotic state we've been in. And now things are coming up to reveal the deception on many levels of what's been happening. And it's for ourselves to now, you know, deprogram, realize, hang on a minute, if I say I'm a victim, I'm saying I ain't got no power. And if I say I ain't got no power, then I'm creating a situation for myself to be abused by those who you're giving your power to. You see, as a man thinketh, so shall he become. And that's man and woman.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Invite you to put a pin in that. Okay. Towards the end, we're going to have a longer conversation, and it'd be a good time for you to say more about that. Now, is there time for one more? Is there one more question? The condition is the answer has to be short.
Okay.
Okay. Empress Divine.
You mentioned, hi, that was really wonderful. I could listen to you all day and all week. Is there something that we need to do or can do, or are we ready for this shift that's going on? Because we're now going into Aquarius on the 18th. Are we ready? Is the planet ready? We're obviously not. What is it that we have to do in order to prepare more?
Well, one thing you can, to take one out of stress, is to realize everything is operating in divine order. You're dealing with a higher intelligence and power that's governing everything beyond what we are getting, you know, caught up in on the outside, the worldly government, the worldly thoughts. We are dealing with a higher, when we talk about the higher power, you're going to say God or source, your awareness there is the existence of the higher power, okay? So the higher power, whatever term you want to call it, is when we deal with ma'at, we're dealing with divine order. That means that everything is perfect. What appears to be a problem, actually, no, it's a part of what has to happen. You know, it's a part of everything is working harmoniously. So it's about having trust and faith in your higher power, which is within you. What this is also, these events has also done is make people become more aware and take responsibility for their own health. Because when you're dealing with the establishment and you're dealing with, you know, I could drop some name, like, look, Rockefeller, listen, pharmacy, okay? When you're dealing with, oh my gosh, the word pharmacy, okay, means sorcery. Look into the etymology of words and you see how it's being used and so forth. Well, what we can do for ourselves is take responsibility for our own health. Health means wholeness. And it also starts from the way we think. Yeah, what thoughts we choose, what ideas we choose to empower, what you internalize externalizes. So I would say, one, trust and know that all is in perfect design. Everything is in perfect divine order. Take responsibility for your own health. Understand that health means wholeness. And this is one of the good things that has happened out of this, because many folks is going back to their own things. I mean, when I was growing up, my you know, parents would just wake up in the morning, drink this. You don't even know what it is. Irish moss with some nut of gin, wine in it, and all of them things in there. And you drink that thing and you go back to sleep. But all that time you never knew it was strengthening your immune system, making you strong. It was, you know, fighting off infection because your constitution was being amplified, boosted up by these natural things, natural medicine of the earth, you see. But when we're dealing with the pharmaceuticals and stuff, this is all synthetic stuff. Drugs, radiation, surgery.
Yes, my brother.
Yeah.
Short is not your word.
I know, Bridget.
Auntie Jean, let's move us forward. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Welcome. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, and you haven't changed a bit.
That's Sagittarius rising for me, you see, and being an Aquarius sun. I'm like,
we'll give you a day. We'll give you a day the next time.
Well, there's a whole heap of folk like me, though. I tell you this.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Have we got time for a break, or are we going to go in straight for the third presentation?
We're going to have just about a 5-minute break. You just got to, you know, so literally 5 minutes to get yourself some water or whatever you need. Just walk away from the screen and walk back. And I'm just going to play you a little clip in that time.
Have you put the brothers' details in the chat?
No, can I ask you to put your details in chat for me, please?
Siam, if you can put your details in, your contact details.
In the chat room.
All your contact.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Oh, let me just mute everybody. Mute all. Okay, so let's go in there. Oh, come on.
Years ago, I interviewed Kwesi Nfume, then the president of the NAACP. As between the presence of white racism and the absence of black fathers, I asked him, which poses the bigger threat to the black community? Without missing a beat, he said, the absence of black fathers. It was President Barack Obama who said, we all know these statistics, that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. The Journal of Research on Adolescence confirms that even after controlling for varying levels of household income, kids in father-absent homes are more likely to end up in jail. And kids who never had a father in the house are the most likely to wind up behind bars. In 1960, 5% of America's children entered the world without a mother and father married to each other. By 1980, it was 18%. By 2000, it had risen to 33%, and 15 years later, the number reached 41%. For blacks, even during slavery, when marriage for slaves was illegal, black children were more likely than today to be raised by both their mother and father. Economist Walter Williams has written that, according to census data from 1890 to 1940, a black child was more likely to grow up with married parents than a white child. For blacks, out-of-wedlock births have gone from 25% in 1965 to 73% in 2015. For whites, from less than 5% to over 25%, and for Hispanics, out-of-wedlock births have risen to 53%. What happened to fathers? The answer is found in a basic law of economics. If you subsidize undesirable behavior, you will get more undesirable behavior. In 1949, the nation's poverty rate was 34%. By 1965, it was cut in half to 17%, all before President Lyndon Johnson's so-called war on poverty. But after that war began in 1965, poverty began to flatline. From 1965 until now, the government has spent over $20 trillion to fight poverty. The poverty rate has remained unchanged, but the relationship between poor men and women has changed dramatically. That's because our generous welfare system allows women, in effect, to marry the government. And this makes it all too easy for men to abandon their traditional moral and financial responsibilities. Psychologists call such dependency learned helplessness. How do we know that the welfare state creates disincentives that hurt the very people we're trying to help? They tell us. In 1985, the Los Angeles Times asked both the poor and the non-poor whether poor women often have children to get additional benefits. Most of the non-poor respondents said no. However, 64% of poor respondents said yes. Now, who do you think is in a better position to know? Tupac Shakur, the late rapper, once said, "I know for a fact that had I had a father, I'd have some discipline, I'd have more confidence." He admitted he began running with gangs because he wanted the things a father gives to a child, especially to a boy: structure and protection. Your mother cannot calm you down the way a man can, Shakur said. You need a man to teach you how to be a man. In my book, Dear Father, Dear Son, I write about my rough, tough World War II Marine Staff Sergeant dad. Born in the Jim Crow South of Athens, Georgia, he was 14 at the start of the Great Depression. Growing up, I watched my father work 2 full-time jobs as a janitor. He also cooked for a rich family on the weekends and somehow managed to go to night school to get his GED. When I was 10, my father opened a small restaurant that he ran until he retired in his mid-80s. He was never angry or bitter and insisted that today's America was very different from the world of racial segregation and limited opportunity in which he grew up. Hard work wins, he told me and my brothers. You get out of life what you put into it. You can't control the outcome, but you are 100% in control of the effort. And before blaming other people, go to the nearest mirror and ask yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? This advice shaped my life. Fathers matter. Until we have a government policy that makes that its first priority, nothing will change. I'm Larry Elder for Prager University.
To subscribe to
So really, I shared that video clip as Sunday is Father's Day. And there is a distinct, significant absence of men in this group. So to some extent, appealing to the women to remind, you know, the men that Sunday is Father's Day. And as fathers, there's a role to play in the relationship to their children and grandchildren and nephews, you know, and nieces across the spectrum. So for me, it's about the alignment that we've just heard about in relation to the stars, and it's about aligning our families together too in that collective way. All right, Auntie G.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, I'm going to introduce everybody to our next presentation by the name of Mami Essie, and I'm just going to read out a bit what she's actually sent me, because Mami Essie, I haven't met Mami Essie yet, so I'm looking forward to her presentation, very much so. Mami Essie is an astrologer. She's a palm reader. She studied astrology for many years, and she loves all the branches of the fascinating science, especially love, mundane. Astrology is a study of the world events, historical and planetary cycles. So Mami Essie, I may pronounce your time. The screen is now yours. I can't see you.
Hello, can you hear me, Auntie Jean?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you clearly.
Fantastic. I'm so sorry. Greetings and good evening, everyone. I'm so sorry. There's problems with my camera, so that's why you won't be able to see me. But hopefully a nice profile picture has popped up there. Can you see me right? Well, you can see my profile picture.
Good too.
Great.
Yeah.
All right then. So my apologies, everybody, again. So I have to just go with the picture. Okay. My name is Mami Essie, like Auntie Jean kindly referred to me as there. And Auntie Jean, we have met actually. I met you last year. So it was lovely to meet you last year. But
okay.
Yeah, I think it was at one of the events last year. But anyway, you meet you. So yes. Well, my name is Mami Essie. I'll repeat myself again. Like you mentioned, I'm an astrologer and a palm reader, and the two are very interchangeable. Actually, both is to do with the study of well, one element of astrology is obviously a study of knowing and understanding about self, how we fit into the grand scheme of things in the world, our place in this world, and our purpose in this world, and the interconnectedness of everything. So our hands are a portal of a means of expressing and revealing who and what we are and what our purpose is, just like our natal chart does that as well. But this season, I'm not going to be talking about personal natal charts. I'm going to be talking and keeping it on, like I said in the introduction that I sent you, mundane astrology, which is the level of astrology that we're currently in, which pertains to world events and current astrological cycles and planetary cycles. And so, as everybody, I'm sure, is aware and is bearing witness to, we are in very interesting, radical, life-changing events. And the catalyst took place. Well, one of the main catalysts was from January of this year, on the 12th of January to be exact, when there was the grand conjunction between Saturn, the planet Saturn and Pluto. I'm really sorry if I'm going to be repeating anything that's been said previously, because if I didn't catch the beginning with what Brother Clyde, Galactic Clyde, was sharing. So my apologies to listeners if I repeat some astronomical facts again. And I love Brother Sayomi's talk as well. Thank you, Brother Sayomi and Brother Galactic Clyde. So like what I was saying, there was a catalysmic conjunction in astrology, and the conjunction is where two planets come together in a degree in the same sign or in the same house. And we had this, like I just mentioned before, on the 12th of January, where Saturn and Pluto came together. Saturn represents planets, they have representations. So Saturn is the planet that represents and governs time, karma, and Pluto is the energy of destruction. It tears down to build, to reconstruct. And in the sign of Capricorn, which governs governments, you know, leaders, leadership, businesses, the whole economic dynamics of everything as well. So this conjunction was quite a major conjunction that happens every so many hundred, every so 100 years, particularly in the last time it happened in Capricorn. But what I'm going to be talking about today is an area that isn't really discussed and looked at too much in astrological circles, and that's pertaining to comets and asteroids. And they're harbingers of events. And in traditional astrology and in traditional ancient books, a lot more was discussed and dealt with dealing with eclipses and comets. We're gonna be having a major eclipse as well this Sunday on the 21st. We're going to be having an eclipse. Yeah, it's going to be an eclipse. So what I'm going to be discussing with the comets is there's been a lot of activity. There's been a lot of major activities in the skies, particularly these last couple of months. And what I found very interesting was researching for tonight's talk on these comets is the linkage of when certain comets have been discovered in the past 5-6 months, and they've all correlated with the events that is unfolding and taking place right now. So I'm going to start off with on December the 28th last year, 2019, a comet which was classified originally as CC 2029Y4 was given the name of Comet Atlas. And that was discovered, I'll repeat myself again, on the 20th of December, 2019, right on the cusp of the new year. And what was really interesting when this comet was discovered was it fell and it tied in with when the first outbreaks of what we were discovering, what was to become known as COVID-19 or the coronavirus, was starting to be circulated or to be noted down in China. So Atlas, can everybody hear me okay? Am I coming through okay, volume wise?
Yes, you are.
You are.
Great, thank you. And so Comet Atlas was discovered. And again, like I said, when certain comets, when they're seen, they're harbingers of events that's gonna happen. And then also around the same time, there's an asteroid that has been in orbit or has been known by NASA and astronomers for quite some time, and it was first discovered in 1980 in a region in the Purple Mountain Observatory in China. And that asteroid was given the name Wuhan. And I found that very interesting. I came across that a couple of months ago. So we have here an asteroid called Wuhan that was coming into the orbit. Sorry, we had that was coming within the orbit of the sign of the constellation of the sign of Capricorn. So it was in alignment when we were having this great conjunction between Saturn and Pluto. And in the mix was also another asteroid, Ceres, also known as Demeter in Greek mythology, which is the mother goddess. So when we had this alignment early January on the 12th, we had Ceres in between, sandwiched between these heavyweight planets of Saturn and Pluto. And then prior to that also, just a couple of days before, Mercury was also, the planet Mercury, which deals with communication, information, was in alignment with the sun. It passed what we call the heart of the sun, which is called a Kazimi. So that's another prominent foretender of events, that something of, you know, great revelations was going to come. So we then now have Wuhan. So Wuhan has gone through, and also, so over the past couple of months, we've had the planet Jupiter, another heavyweight planet, has entered the sign of Capricorn, which it still currently is in, and it's in conjunction with Pluto, which is still currently in Pluto. Saturn has moved out of Capricorn now and is in the sign of Aquarius, but it's retrograde, and it's going to be going back into the sign of Capricorn from next week, July the 2nd, I believe it is. So currently also there's about 5 or 6 planets that are in retrograde motion. So Pluto is retrograde, Jupiter is retrograde, the planet Venus is retrograde, the planet Mercury went retrograde yesterday. The planet Neptune is going to be going retrograde on the 23rd, which is next Tuesday, I believe. And so when we have all of these retrograde planets, retrogrades are herald when something is going back. It's a time of reflection. It's a time of going over it, and it's an activation point. So things are revisited again, and it triggers certain cycles of, you know, unresolved issues that come back or are re-triggered again, that come to a head. And that will go back also to where we are in the current climate. So if I just go back to the comets, so we have Comet Atlas, we have the asteroid Wuhan, who's now currently, like I think I mentioned, in Aquarius, in alignment now, also going retrograde. So with Wuhan, this asteroid going retrograde, well, not necessarily this whole thing, this whole COVID-19, it's not going to be going away anytime soon. It's in alignment also with Saturn, because Saturn is currently also in the sign of Aquarius. And Aquarius is a sign that represents people, equality, brotherhood, humanity. Saturn is also, it's a principle that Saturn is the lord of karma, lord of time, and Saturn represents obstacles also, lessons, hard lessons, you know, that have to be learned and have to be utilized, that we have to go through in order for growth. And it also represents distance. So it's very interesting that during these past couple of months, as Saturn has left out of Capricorn and come into Aquarius, we have, and with everything that's been happening with COVID-19, we have all this thing of social distancing, which is like a slogan really for Capricorn, literally in Aquarius, because, you know, we have become, you know, distance from one another, you know, as a society. And another thing that Saturn also governs is fear. So we've been fed, you know, this propaganda of fear. So it's almost a case where now we fear ourselves, we fear each other, which is what the part of the energies or the negative aspects of this, you know, alignment is triggering. But at the same time, it is triggering a uniformity where there is a union that is still coming. And we've seen that, and like I'm going to come on to with what happened, what was activated recently with the whole incident with George Floyd. Now, if I also come back to another comet that was discovered, Swan, then there's a comet that was discovered called Comet Swan. Sorry, if I just go to my notes to this. Swan was discovered in Australia, in Victoria, on March 25th of this year. And I found that date too very interesting because it was 2 days after the lockdown over here was announced, the first measures of lockdown, and when there was this whole uniformity of lockdowns all over the world. And I was interested that I found it very interesting that they named it the Swan, because there's something called the Swan effect, or the Swan event, which is when something happens. It's like an event that happens. It's a very rare event, and usually they use it in economic cycles, dealing with financial markets. So it represents a big major crash, but these again happen in cycles. I did have some information on that, but I don't have it on hand, so I don't want to go too much into detail regarding that. But again, I found it interesting. This comet is now visible, or it was visible in the sky at this time with this conjunction. And we have a swan event, which is a coronavirus, and we have this lockdown that the world has never seen before in every single country, that has crashed the economies of the world, and that's brought a standstill to everything, literally. And so this comet has been it's been traveling through space, the skies, the heavens. And another interesting date was it came closest to the Earth on May 12 and 13, which was another interesting date, because May 12, 13 was when Saturn went retrograde. It started in its retrograde motion, and it was also just the day before, it was the day after, on the 11th of May, when Boris Johnson came out and started with his second briefing to the country, with after the first initial lockdowns, when there was going to be a form of a relaxation, as it were. And during that week, that period of May 12th to 16th or so, was when Jupiter, Venus and Saturn, all within that week, went retrograde. And so that was another interesting time frame there. And then another interesting point in time was on May the 27th, was when Comet Swan was what is called perihelion, when it's closest to the sun. It's almost like it's going to be purged. And if we remember back, on May the 25th was when we had the incident with George Floyd. And it was going through the constellation of Perseus. And Perseus in mythology, a lot of these stars, fixed stars, constellations, all linked back to Greek mythologies. Well, also, African also mythologies as well, but we're now left with a Greek or the Latin, Italian formats of the story. But Perseus is linked with the Gorgon head of Medusa. And we're told that Medusa was a wicked, some kind of a wicked witch. And but Medusa was a representative of ancient priestesses and an African priestess. And there's research that shows that. And her head is of locks, and there was power in her head and her locks. And mythology is that Perseus cut her head off and carried her head as power. And so I found it very interesting again, because though with the whole death with George Floyd, it was his neck, the police officer was on his neck. And that was the symbolic of, again, that whole Perseus, Medusa, the Gorgon, and the head. So with that happening, and with the comet traveling through that constellation, it seemed to activate, we were seeing a recreation in modern times of that whole mythology, or that whole cosmic drama played out. And as everything, like I was saying before, with these retrograde represent going back, what this whole thing with George Floyd activated was, we've gone back to the whole, the whole Black Lives Matter. We're back in from 2015, 14, when so much was in the news about police brutality. Black Lives Matter first was in our public consciousness. Things kind of died down. Police brutality didn't, but in terms of the main consciousness in the media, it wasn't there as much. But we've obviously, with this whole thing with George Floyd, it activated it. And again, it's with Pluto in Capricorn, it's showing, it's the powers that be. And it's showing the disempowerment and empowerment, because Pluto also represents disempowered and the powered. And where I studied astrology, my astrology teacher, who was a Caucasian white man, a great astrologer as well, called Frank Clifford, he said, and in his book, and also there's another astrologer called Sue Thompson. They're quite well-known astrologers, and in both their books, they've been very open and honest and said that the planet Pluto represents Black people. And even when Pluto was first discovered in 1930, that was when we saw the coronation of Haile Selassie. We saw the rise of, also the rise of Elijah Muhammad and Nation of Islam. Just the year before, I think 1920, we saw, I think, the death of Noble Jew Ali. But all that kind of coincided. There was a time of Black consciousness. There was a raising and a liberation. You know, Marcus Garvey's speech when he looked to the east of, of the crowning of the African Messiah. So Pluto is a symbolic, and another element of Pluto is linked with the Egyptian Kemetic god Osiris, the resurrected deity that will be resurrected. So all of that is all, symbols of where we are right now. And also, I just quickly, I don't know, how much time do I have left, please? Hello?
Yeah, hi. So you've got, so that's about 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be about rounding up to give yourself 10 minutes for questions.
All right, I'm going to come into an instant. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
So, it's back to what I was saying. So all of this, so as we're seeing everything now, we're going back in time to reactivate, going back to old wounds. And this is a point in a time of empowerment. This is a time of empowerment. And for everybody that has been part of a very sad story of a cycle that started 500 years ago, to come back to itself, to revisit itself, to heal itself. And also, if I could just add, if we refer to the chart, the American Chart of Independence, July 4th, 1776. Everything has a chart, people, human beings, when we're born, we have a chart. Countries and nations also, when they are born, when they come on the world stage, have a world chart as well. So the chart for America is the chart of July 4th, 1776. And again, just like a chart for a person, it goes through transits, it goes through cycles. You can chart the course of the history of that country and that nation. So at its conception, the planet Pluto was in Capricorn at 27 degrees Capricorn, in the second house of wealth and income, finances, resources. And who really built the economic and helped to make America as great an economic powerhouse, other than the servitude and the blood and the sweat and the toil of our African ancestors? So you see there's a whole linkage there with the economic wealth and might and independence of America resting on the backs of African Black peoples. And so what's happening now is Pluto goes through a cycle. It takes 248 years to come back around to where it originally was. And Pluto is currently now at 25 or 24 degrees Capricorn. So America is having what is going to be known as its Pluto return, which is going to be exact, I think, either next year or in 2022. So it's almost a case of chickens coming home to roost now. So all of this that's happening with George Floyd and everything that we see, and this whole movement, the Black Lives Matter, and the first time we're seeing where atonement, white people all around the world wanting to join and share in this. It's like starting to really get what Black people have been enduring for how many hundreds and hundreds of years. They're now coming on board. There's a unit in I've seen videos on social media of white people coming and begging Black people for forgiveness and being fully on board, getting on the knee, and everything that we're seeing. So it's almost like, again, like Brother Simon was saying before, it's like a purge, it's a cleansing. some things are staged, but something is also, this is a time, this is the right time, this is the time for it to be happening. We're bearing witness to all of this. So, and back to the whole economic matter as well, it's taken this whole coronavirus now, whether or not, you know, the whole man-made thing, or if it's man-made or not, or it's been utilized for certain powers that be to bring in another agenda, that is probably all and probably is the case. But at the same time, there's a divine intervention that's happening as well. You know, they say that man plans, but God has a greater plan, and the heavens decree what is happening. So if we look and we follow the heavens and the trajectory and the movements of the planets, we can start to see
We've lost volume. We've lost you, Mama Essie. Can't hear you right now.
You might have frozen. Can you hear us, Mama Essie?
Hello? Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
For a bit there. So
Sorry. Can you hear me now, sis? Am I back?
Yeah. Could you repeat just what you just said? Because I don't know if you were still speaking. You dropped out for a bit.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Did a bit about Uranus? Was that where I stopped? Where I couldn't be heard? Okay. I'll just repeat that. What I was saying, I said I was going to be winding it down, but I was making a reference to, there's another outer planet called Uranus, and Uranus is known as like the Great Awakener. You know, it brings revelations. It shakes up everything. Insight, still with electrical, you know, electricity, currents. And this planet is in a 7-year cycle in the sign of Taurus, which is an earth sign. And Taurus, again, represents our earth, agriculture, stability, resources, possessions, and also the economy, you know, how we gain wealth and how we treat the land. And so the last time the last time Uranus was in Taurus was from 1934 to 1942. And we saw quite a lot of shakeups then. There was the first Great Depression, the economic Great Depression in America. We saw the Second World War. We saw the war with Ethiopia and Mussolini and Haile Selassie fleeing and coming to Europe. And we saw the abdication of King Edward giving up the throne, and then the current Queen's father taking up the throne and the mantle. So, and we saw also the rise of fascism and dictatorships and dictator states. And that's in, you know, we're kind of seeing certain things all kind of playing out there again right now, where we are currently in the world economic and historical placement. So
thank you.
Yes.
So let's just pause you there. I can hear you've got a lot more to add, but again, to allow time for any questions from anyone.
There is a question in the chat from Josephine, and the question is, there is an important election in the USA in November 2020, and that the leader of the free world, Donald Trump, do you have any insights from astrology as whether Trump will win or lose the election in November 2020?
In answer to that, no, I haven't fully looked at Trump's chart, and it's a major time for me because I think Donald Trump is a Gemini, and right now currently we have the North Node in Gemini and the South Node in Sagittarius, so that's in alignment with his chart. So, but I haven't fully studied the two to give a definitive answer on that one.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions from anybody? Everybody's gone quiet out there. Orville, I think you've unmute yourself. Would you like to ask a question, Brother Orville?
Yeah, greetings, family. Yeah, I'd love to if I could. It was just on relation to Pluto. I believe in 2006 it was considered or demoted even to that of a dwarf planet, and I wonder if there's any significance in relation to also being called or cited by your lecturers, your mentors, as the black people's planet. And I wondered if that black was termed as in relation to the other planets being of other race, or so could you just enlighten me on that particular aspect and whether you consider it to be a dwarf planet?
Right, yes. There was a lot of sadness in a lot of the astrological community when that happened. A lot of people were very much in opposition to that, and it was a very strange decision to demote Pluto at that time. What the motives were, who knows, but there's theories as to that. But still, most astrologers still consider Pluto as a planet. It's not considered, they don't really view it all as a dwarf planet. It's still considered part of the Alpha 3 planet. So there's still a raging debate about that. But most astrologers still see Pluto as a fully fledged planet. And regarding the question pertaining to Pluto and representing Black people, that was nothing was really said about per se the other planets were into other races. What just came up was categorically by those two astrologers that I named in their books, and in person, they've just said that they just associated Pluto specifically with the plight of Black people, and wherever you see Pluto in a chart, particularly even sometimes with certain white people's chart, certain configurations, conjunctions represents there's a link or something that has to be played out, or an association with Black people. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, it leads me to just the second part of the same question, really, in relation to, say, reparations and where we are now with, and I think you touched upon it with Black Lives Matter. What are your indications regarding, and as you know, there's issues that, whether it be funding by Warren Buffett or certainly donations going to even the Democratic Party we're reading at the moment. But what relations do you see as regards the conversations in and around reparations and pulling down of statues? You said there seems to be a movement, but are you also concerned that there may well be an overall distraction strategy? And is there anything that you're seeing in regards to that aspect? And I don't know if Pluto touches upon that in regards to your answer.
Yeah, good question. Yes, when it comes to politics, and the whole movement has become a very political thing and strategy right now. So whenever elements of politics come into play, there's always going to be deceptions and illusions that come to play. The planet Neptune it governs illusion and delusion, glamour and deception. And it's also, Neptune was also, I didn't get a chance to I didn't to explain that too much before in my lecture, but Neptune has been playing very prominently as well in the background with all of this and everything happening with the whole Black Lives Matter as well, because it's also in the sign of Pisces, and Pisces represents compassion, coming together, getting lost in a cause. So that's why we've seen this overwhelming emotional element that's been coming to play with all of this whole Black Lives Matter. But because Neptune's going to be going retrograde on the 23rd, so with that we might get revelations of more of the deceptions that are at play regarding that. And regarding the reparations, yes, Pluto is definitely playing a part here as well, because like was mentioned, this whole element of Pluto being in the second house of money and income, wealth in America's chart, this is all, it's going to be playing a big part in it. Whether or not we're going to get the reparations that we want, but then that's also about the empowerment. That's where that we have to start exercising as a collective, that strategy and that empowerment, that focus of, well, how is this going to work out? How is reparations really going to be formulated? Because so much has been, when it comes to Black people getting reparations, we're fobbed off, but so many other people have got reparations. The Japanese got reparations, the Jews got reparations. So it can be done, and maybe sometimes we have to start utilizing and looking at how these other groups did it. And obviously it was done more in a unified sense, so that has to, that has to come into play as well. So I hope that answers it somewhat.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So just a question, one more question. One more question. Is that you, Sandra? You are muted. You're still muted. You know what I mean? You have to look.
Okay.
Now you're good.
So you mentioned about the George Floyd and the momentum of how white people are well getting on board with all of this. Where do you see, or can you predict where this energy is going to go for us in the future, or is it going to just fizzle out like it's done in the past?
Another good question. Again, it's time will tell. We make history. We are aligned to the planets and everything, the unfolding, but we also, from our free will and our actions, can take things where we need to take things, or where we'd like to take things. We are at a time of reconstruction. So Pluto and Saturn have destroyed, and so there's a destruction, there's a demolition, but with that demolition, something new and something new has to take its place and be created. So that's where we come into it. That's where our free choice, our free will, and using our intelligence and our collectivity has to come into it. So I think one of the great things always, to study history, to look back on things. And all these retrograde planets that prompt us to go back. We need to go back to studying the past and studying, the ancient past and what and how we were great then, to bring that back into the future. So I have to go back to the past to go back into the future, if that kind of makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you
very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mama Essie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant presentation. You had some accolade on the side already for a brilliant presentation. So thank you very much. And we're going to be moved swiftly on now to our next presentation, and that we have our brother Israel. Brother Israel, long time no see. How you doing?
Myself, good evening all. Yes, I'm fine, sis. Great pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invite, and it's great to be a part of the family. It's been a while since I've seen some of your faces here, but I can see that the energies are bringing us here together for that purpose once more. So yeah, it's wonderful. So good evening to each and every single one of you. I greet you with the energy of the divine cosmic intelligence. I greet you all with the energy of the ancestors and those who've come before us. And by the cosmic intelligence grace, we can continue to walk that path and build a better and brighter ahead and future. So yeah, I'm here. Great to be here. I'm seeing you're giving these people like 20 minutes, brother. You're on the clock. So you're playing that Saturn very well.
We won't.
I saw Brother Sayun's face alone, like, what? 20 minutes gone? Like, I could have sworn that was 5 minutes, man.
it's only to rise the next star.
No. I totally understand.
Okay.
That's what happens. Time does fly. When you're in that in that space. So essentially, I'm just going to be just adding and somewhat repeating and echoing what's already been said by Brother Sayum, Brother Galactic Clyde, Sister Mami Essie also as well. I'm an astrologer, and essentially, again, astrology is about understanding the cycles, and we have various cycles, whether we're talking from the millisecond to millenniums. There are various cycles that are always existing and always being created as time goes on. And each, there's something called fractal. So it's almost like, I'm sure many of you have seen that, these images of, pictures of the universe and how it is a direct reflection of the human brain and the human body cells. So hence the term as above, so below. So we are a reflection, we are nature, we are a part of nature. So what astrology is actually doing is presenting us a clock, a cosmic clock. And by understanding the nature, the characteristics, the descriptions of what the universe is showing us, we can, again, be aligned in some way, the best way we can. And by being in tune, by being aligned, by hearing, by witnessing and seeing these particular characteristics in nature, it allows us to be able to, again, mold a better self. And by molding a better self, we mold a better community, we mold a better society, and we mold a better world. So the universe is not there to essentially tell you exactly what to do. We have to be able to use, for example, in the summer, you don't see anybody going out in the hot sun wearing a raincoat. Now, there's no law out there that says you can't wear a raincoat in the summer. But we know, intelligence tells us, nature shows us that it's not conducive to do that. So it's about understanding the cycles. Astrology lets us know that it's probably a good time to do that, not so great time to do that. It's a good time to put your foot on the pedal, take your foot off the pedal, and that's what all these cycles. So when we're speaking about planets that are entering particular zodiac signs and retrogrades, and we understand as astrologers, we understand that that's showing us something. There's a nature, there's a characteristic to each one of these various planets and retrogrades that is telling us that, hey, this is what this represents. Work with it the best way you can. So we're all aware that since the end of 2019, coming into this year, I mean, astrologically, there's been huge energies that have been sort of like, there was a huge conjunction of planets in the sign of Capricorn at the end of last year, beginning of this year. And we also had a few eclipses also in the Cancer Capricorn axis also as well, that started all of this, this movement. And the number one planet that is actually, although Sayom, Brother Galactic Clyde, Sister Mamercy have been mentioning, pretty much all of the planets, and they all play a role. It's just like the human body. Every organ is playing its role, the heart, the lungs, the liver. But there's at various times, there will be an organ in the body that's dominating at a particular time. And just as that goes, the same goes with the planets as well. So the number one planet that's actually calling the shots here, it is Saturn. And we've heard Brother Sayum speak about Saturn, but Galactic Clyde, Sister Mami Essie also as well. So for the next 2 years, 2.5, 3 years actually, we're actually in under the umbrella of Saturn. Now, we've heard earlier on that Saturn is to do with karma. He's the god of time. This is one of the reasons why we often see him with the sickle, or if you all seen the images of Osar in ancient Egypt, you see him with the crook. That's the symbol of Saturn. It's something that you use in order to cut crops. It's the harvest time. This is why Osar was seen as green because he represented the agriculture, the crops, nature. And when nature reaches a particular time, it reaches its peak. It's time for the harvest to be cut. So hence why he's the father of time. That's his connection here there with time. So Saturn is just shown us here that we have reached a very pivotal, a very important time, whether you want to say in history or in present time. And it's time to get rid of the old so that the new can come in. And this is all of what we're witnessing now is all a part of that. What's made this particularly very heavy, because Saturn does go into Capricorn and he's going to be going into Aquarius at the end of this year. I mean, he's in there now, but he's going to be coming back into Capricorn and moving back again into Aquarius on December the 21st. So this happens every 29, 30 years. So the question would be, well, why is this one so different? Why is it so big? Well, the reason why it's so big and so it's got immense energy behind it is because he moved into Capricorn, but then there was other big planets that moved with him too. So Pluto was already there. Jupiter also came along. By the time the end of the 2019, beginning of 2020, we had sort of like a really bunch of them. Mars was in there and Mercury was in there. And you had the sun in there, then you had the eclipses in there, and you had all this bunch of energy all there in Capricorn, which was being ruled again by Saturn. And Saturn, again, what he does, he limits, he restricts. The purpose behind this is because it's actually when we are in positions where we are being forced to work under certain limitations, that's where the greatest creativity comes out of. So the whole death of Osiris is what is being played out here. We have to die, and I'm speaking metaphorically, although it will also play out physically also as well. There's an element, a part of us here that has to die, and we have to be chopped up, as Asar was chopped up, in order to be brought back together by the feminine, Isis, so that we can be reborn again. And this is the process here, what we're going through. This is what we're seeing here. So the whole COVID-19, lockdown, this is all Saturn, all these words that are being used, like what Sister Mamiesi was saying earlier on, social distancing, lockdown, all of this. These are all Saturnian, these are Osirian words. This is what it's to do with. And it's quite interesting. Coming up also on the 25th of May, we witnessed a horrific event where we had the death of George Floyd with the police, Saturn, because again, everything in society, everything in the universe is governed by a particular planet. The police are ruled by Saturn. That's why they always speak about they are there to enforce the law. Saturn is the law, you see. So this police guy leaning on his neck and George Floyd screaming, "I can't breathe." Again, this is Saturn. The number one symptom of the COVID virus was they can't breathe. There's something restricting the breath. There's something restricting the lungs. So this is a Saturnian kind of energy which we are witnessing. And then I'm going to come on to what does that mean for us and how best do we then use that? Because we're only halfway, we're not even halfway. I mean, we've got a solar eclipse happening this Sunday coming on the 21st in the sign of Cancer. And what is known as the nodes in astrology, which causes the eclipses, of actually recently just moved into Gemini Sagittarius. So what's actually happening is there's a dance actually happening here. And the whole George Floyd, because eclipses, what eclipses do is they mark certain endings and beginnings of time. You all probably heard of Breonna Taylor, who her name after the George Floyd incident also started to be called out. She started to become again more popular because, again, even though her case was there, it was kind of like beneath the radar. Well, Breonna Taylor was actually born a day after the eclipse in Sagittarius in Gemini. And it was quite interesting because the moment we had the eclipse a few weeks ago in Sagittarius Gemini, Brianna's name again started to be called again because she was actually born on that eclipse. So these cycles are showing us pointers of beginnings and endings, and it's indicating to us where we need to jump on board, just like a train. A train may be going from one destination to another, but it will stop at particular stops. So where is it that you are coming on the train, and where is it you're coming off? And that's what these cycles intend to show us. So we're only halfway through the year. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it gets worse and there is more to come. So, and why should it get bad? Because we're human beings, we're creatures of habit. We get into a particular system, a particular methodology, a groove, a tradition, and we like to stay with it. It works for us. We get comfortable. We feel secure, and the universe is just telling us that, hey, there's more to your life than this little system that you've got set up, and you've built this mini universe around you. We are part of something bigger. We're part of something greater. We're part of a larger universe, a larger organism. So something comes in and cracks that. That could be losing your job, you get divorced, your wife leaves you, your husband leaves you, car breaks down, all kinds of things. You name it. And these are just signals that are being sent to us by the universe that, hey, wake up, pay attention. You perhaps maybe need to be going in that direction, or focusing on this, or focusing on that. So there is more to come. As Brother Sayum was saying earlier on, and Brother Galactic, it's a reset. In order to rebuild, you must destroy. It is what it is. Whether we're doing it consciously or whether we're doing it unconsciously, the destruction of something must happen. The collapse of something must happen before something again rebuilds. And we're seeing again how the COVID just shut everything down. I mean, there was a particular day I went out just shortly after the whole shutdown, and I was just going around central London, just went for a walk, and it was quite humbling just to see everything just shut. It was just, I mean, on one level, I loved the peace of it, and the air was clean and no cars, and it's like, wow. It's like, and then you're hearing about, the birds are coming out and the bees population is rising and nature is blossoming. It's like, yeah, that's right. Shut this stuff down. Factories close down for a moment. Just take a back step. And I totally get it, because there are some people in their work, it does require them to perhaps maybe have some kind of human interaction, and so I get it. Where's the next meal going to be coming from? So I know it's not easy for everybody, depending on the nature of your work. But this is essentially. I'm just looking at the time here. Oh, 5 minutes. Okay, all right. Then I better hurry up. So this it was quite a humbling experience, but it's something that was necessary. We needed that lockdown. We needed that shutdown. Companies, billion-dollar industries, literally going bust overnight, folding overnight. Petrol industry, just look. I mean, the losses were colossal. It's like nothing's been seen like that since the Great Depression in the 1930s. So we're seeing here a destruction of something. Now, that destruction, every single one of us here, and anybody who's not even here, there is something in our lives that needs to be destroyed. We need to get rid of it. It's like Brother Sayun was saying, the old paradigm, that energy of that can't support the new paradigm. You've got to, you can't be doing the same thing and expect different results. It can't happen. So this year is a year where it's like we're bringing everything down, the destruction, there's more to come, and it will continue again next year. The year after that, we'll start picking up the pieces, and it's not until maybe 2022, 2023, then we really start seeing, we're kind of coming out of it. I mean, even some people won't even recover after that as well. So what is the message here? When I say that we're dealing with a Saturnian energy, and we've heard many of the words that describe Saturn. Saturn is the planet of responsibility. And we've come to a time where we really need to start taking back our responsibility, start owning what we are responsible for, stop blaming others. That's number one. Whether we find it justified or it's injustice, we must stay in our lane. You know, the planetary, how they orbit, the game which they have every 4 years, known as the Olympics, is based on astrology. That's one of the reasons why people always ask me, or they ask questions, why is it that the athletes are always running anti-clockwise? Well, that's the direction that the planets are orbiting the sun. They go anti-clockwise. So each one of those runners on the field are essentially representing planets. And on the number one sport, which is track, it's running, we know that when the Olympics is on, the people who get the most spotlight are the runners, your Usain Bolts and so on and so forth. If they cross their line and go into another athlete's line while running, you get disqualified. That's Saturn. Follow the law, abide by the cosmic rules, follow nature. Saturn is a planet that governs natural law. That's why he was the governor, or Sar was the governor of, he presided over the crops, over the vegetation, because crops, plants, animals, they go by and they are governed and they stay within a certain natural law. So Saturn is telling us here that we need to own it in, take what's yours, what are you here to do? What is your duty? And stick with that, own on it, and work on it, and take responsibility. The moment you start looking, oh, but look at what they're doing over there, and look at what he's doing over there, and he's being corrupt over there, and look at those people, that's it. You're no longer following Saturn anymore. So social media and things of this nature, I'm not saying social media is a negative thing or a bad thing. It has its uses. It's all, again, how we respond and how we utilize these particular tools. But a lot of the time we get distracted. When you get distracted, it means you get pulled from your lane that you're supposed to be running in. And once you do that, that's how we can build a brighter future on an individual level and on a collective level. People get caught up in the collective. Don't worry about the collective. The collective will take care of itself. When you go to a building where you see builders building a building, you got the person who's mixing the cement, you got the person who's carrying the bricks, you got the person who's laying down the bricks, you got the carpenter who's doing the woodwork, you got the electrician who's doing the wiring. They're all working for the same common aim, but their functions and their jobs are different. If one gets sloppy and one goes out of line, it's going to have a direct effect. So don't worry too much about the collective. The collective's fine. It's the individual that you need to be worrying about. What are you supposed to be doing? So the moment you get caught up in the collective, and that's why when we see, like, for example, like when people are protesting, like with the situation with George Floyd and stuff, people are coming there with different agendas. My agenda is not your agenda. Some people want to fight. Some people want to loot. Some people want to rob. Some people want to just get in and jump on. And so everyone's got these. So what happens with the collective is a lot of stuff gets lost. Keep it Saturn. Rein it in. Who am I? What am I? What am I here to do? What is my function? What am I supposed to be building? Saturn. Saturn is the builder. Where am I? Where is my limitations? What is the limitations that I'm supposed to be functioning under? And once you do that and get that and find that line, then you start building. The moment you start building, you automatically, as they say, birds of a feather flock together. You will automatically pull the people that are necessary into your life in order for you to guys keep building. And on that note,
Brother Israel, I'm living in my lane. I'm living in my lane. I'm hearing you. Okay.
I know. But what is that? Is that the whole lot, or did you want 10 minutes?
So what's going to happen? We're going to get you about 3 or 4 questions, and then after that, we'll open it up to get some questions from somebody in relation to some of the others. It might be an unanswered question.
Yeah.
Are we going to? Okay, but
yeah,
some direct questions for yourself first.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you very much, Brother Israel. Thank you. There is a question from Jackie. I think you answered one of her questions about Donald Trump. Would you like to answer that?
About Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Well, Donald Trump is an interesting character. Again, you know, his chart is very. He's got one of these. He's got powerful. He's got an exceptionally powerful chart. Now, I'm not saying that he's necessarily using it well. That's a totally different thing. And I think these are some of the things sometimes we get mixed up with. We get caught up in the rhetoric and the name calling and, oh, he's a this and he's a that. Okay, maybe, okay, but that's beside the point. He's got a very good chart. He's not there by accident. And whether you want to go into conspiracy theories and say, oh, well, they nominate, they know who's going to win or whatever. Okay, fine. He's still not there by accident. Remember, there's a divine plan at the end of it. No matter what we do as human beings, and we can do exceptionally great things, we are still working within the opportunities and the limitations of this grand universe. So, he's there for a reason. He's got a chart that backs that up. He's very radical. He's got a lot of wild energy, again, in his chart. But from what I'm seeing here, I think one of the other problems is, or one of the other issues that I'm having is the guy who's running against him, is it Joe Biden or whatever his name is that we don't seem to have a time chart for him. So it's a bit difficult to say whether if we had a time chart as an astrologer, we can perhaps definitely make a very 100% concrete prediction that if he's got a chance of winning it or not. There are certain things in his chart that are favorable, that's for sure, but without a time chart we can't say 100% for sure. But we do have a time chart for Donald Trump, and what I can say and say with confidence is he's just getting the pot of gold, and the planets favor him. Now, whether he uses that's a whole different thing, and that's what Brother Sayum was saying earlier on. It's about how we respond to things. The universe may give you great power. The universe may give you great wealth, great knowledge, great wisdom. Yeah, how are you going to use that is the question. What are you going to do with that? You can use that power to destroy people, kill people, but you could also use that to create life, build, and enhance other people's lives as well. So it does look like he's going to win again. And maybe he may even win, not necessarily for the right reasons. He may not necessarily be winning because he's a great guy or anything like that. but it can be more to do with, obviously, the people who backed him the first time want to back him again the second, because they'll come out and vote for him, and they don't want to lose face. They don't want to say, oh, we made a mistake, and we shouldn't have voted for him. Yeah, I think I'll vote Joe Biden. No, it don't work like that. In order to keep face the ego, they're going to say, no, we'll back him again. So, you know, and also as well, the opposition's not strong. There's no strong opposition as well. It's the same also like in the UK with Boris Johnson. There's no strong opposition. There's no strong Labour leaders that can, and that's what's giving them the edge. So it's not necessarily because they're great politicians and people love them and they aspire to be them. It's the fact that they you know, so that's another thing also that favors them also as well. But it's looking like it's going to be.
So let's pause you. Let's get shorter answers so we can get more questions asked.
No problem.
Okay. So, okay, who else wants to ask a question?
Would you like to ask your question, Jacqueline? Or do you want me to read it out? There is she, Jacqueline. She put a question in the chat about Fushi. Can you see it?
Hold on, question. Okay, Dr. Fushi, who works in the National Institute of Health USA, predicted that there would be a surprise global infection in 2017. So Future had some powerful skills. Bill Gates did, yeah, prepared. Did any astrologist anticipate to? Yes, they did. I did. I've got the recording. If any of you want it, I'll put up my number later on and I will send you the clip of where I spoke about the chart. What I do, I've been doing it for like the last 4 or 5 years now, where I look at the chart of the new year for the world. But I mean, I said it for here. I'm based in London, UK. I will set it for London, UK. But it will let me know what the year has to come. And I specifically say epidemic. You hear me say it, clear and simple. So, and there were other astrologers, again, who saw it coming. They saw the huge, again, planetary alignments with Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto. You had this Saturn-Pluto conjunction on the 12th of January this year. The last time we had a Saturn-Pluto conjunction was in the early 80s, and that's when we had the AIDS virus. So anytime those two planets come together, we see a signal coming together. This time Jupiter was involved. Anytime Jupiter moves into Capricorn, there's always a financial crash. The last one we had was in 2008. So again, this is one of the reasons, this is how financial astrologers work. Once you know the planets that are going into a particular, well, you know what to invest in, you know what to buy in, and you know what not to, just through planetary cycles. So astrology is an exceptional, useful tool for that. So yes, people saw, not necessarily, you didn't have to be an astrologer to see it, but people saw that, and astrologers saw it too, definitely, 100%.
Okay, so let me pause you there.
Yeah.
The three other speakers, you've got kind of 3 minutes to say something that you want to add, right? And then there'll be questions open for all 4 of you. All right, and I'm timing you, 3 minutes.
Okay. Should I kick off then? Let me kick off on this, yeah?
Thank you.
It's good, Israel, that you mentioned Jupiter in Capricorn, because I think we didn't really get to touch on that, us three, just in depth. But Jupiter in Capricorn plays a major role in the change that we're having, especially late 2019, 2020, because Jupiter entered Capricorn, I think it was November. And Jupiter in Capricorn Jupiter is the planet of expansion.
Yeah.
But when he enters Capricorn, it's not a good placement, because it's the place of his fall, just like the sun goes into autumn, it's fall. Jupiter is in his fall in Capricorn, and Jupiter represents wealth, expansion, education, travel, all of these things. So when Jupiter in his fall, these things go reverse. So what is expansion becomes contraction. What is wealth becomes positivity, things of that nature. So we've seen that thing plays out as well, because Jupiter was in the mix of Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, and Jupiter stays in a sign for 1 year. So we're having this 1 year downplay or downward spiral in terms of the economy and the economics in that sense. I'll leave it alive, and travel as well. Okay, that's me. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Who's next?
You see me there now?
Yep.
Am I on? Yes. Great hearing you, Brother Israel. There's a lot, what you said, and the sister, excuse me, don't want to be essay.
Mama Racy.
Yes. I want to touch on two things. One, the question about, Fauci predicting this in 2017 and so forth. I want to just kind of quickly say that astrology is seen in as like an occult science, hidden culture, hidden knowledge. And this astrology, for just like you have America has a chart for itself, okay? It's Cancer. This country, sun sign, I think, is Leo. Jamaica is Leo as well. The point I'm saying is that whenever they use these things too, okay? But it's like, you're riding a wave, because this is how you can predict when you're going to do something, because it's an agenda, okay? So they use the astrological aspects coming into play, and they ride these energies too. So there's, the positive and so-called, the negative way of working with the alignments of planets. So you can see these things. So it's not necessary that Fauci has this skill in prediction. It's the timing that they know when to set up certain things to take place. Even the thing with George Floyd, Memorial Day, we're also dealing with Mars squaring the sun, Mars in Pisces, squaring the sun in Gemini. So therefore, there was contention that was ready to explode, right? There was a tension there, right? How you assert yourself. Mars initiated it, right? Because Mars is initiating energy. And plus you have that in Pisces with, now on the 23rd, we're getting Neptune conjuncting Mars. This is where the delusion, it's either tuning into yourself or getting caught up in the collective field of the confusion based on the fear that is driving a lot of people just to react rather than be in self-reflection in order to know how to respond, yeah? So, and the next thing, this mention about Wuhan. I did some research some time ago, and the word Wu actually means spiritual intermediary. Very interesting. There's a TV series, no, it was a film that was called The Wu Assassins. I don't know if any of you may have been aware of that, but that was about being the spiritual intermediary, right, for various certain spirits. This dude was an assassin. He embodied the spirits of about 1,000 monks, okay? And he was fighting again for the light and, against the darkness and so forth. So Wu is what gets translated in English, shaman, right? So it's interesting. We have to look at the symbology of everything isn't done haphazard, but it's the language of symbology or symbols in how what we would call what is now being brought out into the open, the deep state. There is a deep cabal, there is a deep, look, a lot of things are going to be coming out in the wash, okay? And when Neptune goes retrograde, there's going to be things getting be revealed where it's going to show certain people think they know, they're going to realize that they don't. Because what's going to get revealed is going to really, it depends on where you are in yourself, but some people get upset. I mean, there's things we could really go in and talk about, even on this country, that there's no royal family.
Thank you.
This, yeah, but anyway, we could go into this. Yeah.
Thank you. There'll be time to come back and continue this. Mamresi?
Hello,
Yep.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Again, fantastic presentation. I love, shout out to Brother Israel, Brother Sayomi, Brother Galactic Clyde. I'm loving everything that I'm hearing and all the questions. I guess I just want to quickly just touch on the great conjunction that will be happening and transpiring between Saturn and Jupiter on the 21st of December this year. And this all, again, is very much in alignment with everything that's been said, and particularly what Brother Isa was talking about in regard to that, this is a time we're moving into a new eon, a new epoch, as it were. And this 20-year cycles, it falls into a greater 200-year period cycle of where these two planets of Saturn and Jupiter meet. Now, for the past 200 years, they've been meeting every 200 years in an Earth sign. And so what is going to be happening on the 21st of December this year is they're going to meet for the first time, well, not for the first time, it's happened before, they're going to be meeting again in the sign of Aquarius, which is going to be ushering in another 200 years of where these planets will meet every 20 years in their conjunctions in the air signs. So when we hear about this whole age of Aquarius, it's not per se, it's not going by the precision of the equinoxes, but this is going to kind of usher in a mini age of Aquarius, in a sense of where, things in terms of inventions, creations, brotherhood, it is like a new dawn. So all of this breakdown is happening to kind of usher in this new elements that is going to be bringing in and coming into being. And we're seeing that also replicated with the nodes, the north and the south nodes that are going to be residing in the sign of Gemini, which is an air sign in Sagittarius. So we're seeing that all playing out. So that's my final contribution there.
Thank you.
Thank
Any other questions? Anyone else got a question they want to ask? So I've got 3 or 4, but has anyone got any other questions? All right, so I'll ask a question. And so astrology is about time and time management. And from, we were tuned in to ancient Kemet in terms of time and the alignment of the planet and the building of the pyramids and as well as being able to see and know and understand movement of planets and stars long before modern people now with their stethoscope and periscope and all kind of scopes can see and understand it. So where did we lose it? Where did we lose that relationship to time, that has created some dysfunctionality amongst us in 2020? It's not everybody, but there's some dysfunctionality. Where did we lose that when we were so in control of time and a relationship to time in alignment with the planets?
Unmute yourself, Israel.
Yeah, I've done so. So yeah, good question. I think we have to be very careful insofar as we must always honor the ancestors, and we must always honor those people who have come before us. But also as well, we must be very, very aware that they were human beings too. And they were subject to making mistakes. They were subject for taking things for granted. They were subjected to perhaps maybe abusing power. What we are seeing, as they say, there's nothing new under the sun and nothing old under the moon. It's all been done. So when we look at ancient Kemet and ancient civilizations like this, I strongly feel that we have a little bit of a romanticized viewpoint. And we tend to look at them like, well, they were perfect. They did nothing wrong. So if they were like that, why are we suffering today? And going back to that Saturn, that karma, they could be many of us here, many of us that have perhaps already passed, that were part of epochs and cycles of ancient Kemet where maybe things were abused, things were abandoned, things were taken for granted, and it's where it's got us today. So the dismantlement or the having to recollect and study and work hard to get this back is part of our karmic journey. You see, in terms of the heights of Kemet, yeah, of course, salute, always. But they had flaws also as well. They went to war like other people, just like how today is done. So I think we have to be very careful, because sometimes we tend to put them, and I'm not saying they shouldn't be on a pedestal, they should be on a pedestal, but they should be also on a pedestal where we recognize that they were human and they had flaws also as well. And some of them fell from great heights and took things for granted. And some of us are part of that energy. Some of us are reincarnated to rebalance that.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Clyde, yeah.
Can I speak to that as well? There's books such as The Stolen Water of the Great Pyramid, where our ancestors discussed the time that they're in and the time as it was going to change, and how time was going to come back to the time that they're in, or the height. In astrology, in all the science, we have what is called the rise, the fall, just like the seasons. And I think that we've come to our winter season in that sense as African people worldwide. And as our winter season becomes the slavery and the other things that we have encountered, our ancestors talk about how low we was going to fall, you know, and if anything was going to happen in terms of restoring us. And they made preparation. In the same book that I mentioned, one of the preparation that they made, a lot of the priests, they were told to study some of the sacred books. And after they studied the sacred books, they were supposed to impregnate the most important female counterpart, their wives, and so that they can pass the information down the generation. Because the debate, if they write it just written on the wall, some people may lose the language, they may lose certain interests and things like that. But they realize one of the best ways to do is send it down the generation through pregnancy. So that's one time, sometime in history, one of these souls will come up out of the rabbit hole with that knowledge. And I think that we're at this stage now that many of us are born to looking deeper and looking into more meaningful aspects of Africa in that sense, or our people in general, in terms of where we were and where we have fallen, and what's the outcome of where we're heading now.
Thank you.
I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Is there a last question?
Could I answer? Could I talk on that question there?
Ooh, okay. Hold on 1 second. Patricia, do you have a question? Is that what's come in?
Yeah, I was going to just make reference to Saomi's comment about the soul and the need, you know, in terms of our essence. For me, I think that's what we need to heal our souls. And then obviously the mind, spirit, body will fall in place.
Okay.
We place an emphasis on mind, which is important, but and because they're all connected. But I think it's about, for me, it's about healing the soul of the being, and in that way, then you're able to see and understand and become more enlightened to truth in terms of life itself.
Okay, thank you. So Saomi, you get to have the last word, which is 3 minutes, answering Auntie Jean and what you want to say about in relation to my question. And after that, we move into close. Thank you.
I'll see how I can touch it. All right. What Israel said, I very much agree with, because, and what Clyde has said, you know, this is all part of it, because you're dealing with a greater saga here than the way we, like how Brother Israel was saying, we fantasize, we romanticize about our ancestors and not understanding the cycles and the real nature of reality and how things happen. Now, we've heard about the fall, you know, when they talk about the fallen angels and so forth. These are symbolic of the fall in consciousness. And just like there are cycles with where how planets meet back up, conjunct, you know, you have ending of cycles, beginning of cycles. We also have cycles of consciousness, where consciousness, we're fully, you know, aware of ourselves as consciousness. But then, you know, we end up having a fall in consciousness, you see, where the vibrational frequency of our awareness is so low, we're not able to tune in to our soul knowledge. So we become very conditioned and programmed by the earthly material plane. And then you're caught up in an illusion, which is why they're telling you that this reality is really a simulation. You know, so we used to have the knowledge, the cosmic connection, our cosmic roots, reality of one's true self. We weren't just perceived on ourselves as, you know, even the term human is a program. It means soil, dust, ground. And that word didn't come around until around the 13th century, you see? So even the terms and labels we use to define ourselves are entrapping us based upon the limit, where we're limiting ourselves, all right? Confining our frequency into such a little narrow container when we need to expand our consciousness. This is what ascension means. The ascension in vibrational frequency, because everything is energy. All is consciousness, all is correspondence, all is vibrations. So we are to expand our consciousness by not focusing or getting caught up on this narrow term of identification, saying we're human, because we did have that connection to the cosmic consciousness. And when we're talking about the fall, it was the fall in consciousness and the cycles of consciousness, where now we're on the rise again, you know? You have, you know, so that's what I would say with that.
Thank you.
There's a bigger picture to ourselves, you know.
Indeed, thank you. So my last word is that you're all amazing. The four of you was just absolutely brilliant, and thank you. Auntie Jean.
Thank you very much. Yes, amazing, wonderful, brilliant. Galactic Clyde, thank you very much. Whose brainchild it was to have all four astrologers here on one platform. Thank you very much. Brilliant idea. Also, Siam, thank you as always. Always got enough to say. And Mama Essie, I can't remember meeting you, but I probably once I see you face to face, then yeah, probably will come back. Thank you so much for your presentation as well. And Brother Israel, thank you very much as well, because I remember when you did the African Culture Market, you could chat for the whole time as well as Brother Siam. We have to rush to get you off the stage, but anyway, thank you very much. And also you can tune in. You're going to see Sister Nkechi and also Lyndon Wishart. They're both in the chat room as well. They're going to be joining us on the African Culture Market this week, Sunday, between 7 o'clock and 10. And also Sister Nkechi is going to be joining us here on the 3rd of July. So thank you everybody for joining us this evening. It's been eventful. It's been brilliant. I can see we've still got a couple more minutes. So
Have yourself. Behave yourself. Go put the kettle on. Go, I'm done.
But a big round of applause to all of our four guests. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Auntie Jean, somebody's calling you.
Well done.
Thank you. It was very great. Really lovely to hear everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kechi,
thank you.
On Sunday and also on the 3rd of July.
Yeah, I was really amazed listening to all four, because it just felt like what my talk will be a natural follow-up to that. So I'm really excited now. I feel as if they've set me up for my next few talks that I'm going to be doing.
Excellent. So,
and yeah, so it's lovely. Thank you.
So Nkechi, I will take the appreciation for managing time from you next time. You can give that, you know, with all wonderfulness that you bring. You can give that. It's all right.
I'm going to have to just learn to just speak really quickly and precisely. So
no,
yeah, I have a similar problem to some of my brothers here.
You've got to be able to hear you. You've got to be able to hear you.
Yeah.
Auntie Jean.
So I'm going to say goodnight, everybody. Yeah. It's time to go.
Well done to you all. Thanks for
Thank
the
you.
presentation.
Thank
I
you.
actually was listening to you while traveling on the motorway. So yes, I have a recording from Israel if he's in charge of it, so I can listen to it again. Because you know, a certain time you might.
I'm not in charge. So I believe Auntie Jean has the recording.
I think
brother,
they're
brother.
talking about, you made reference to your prediction that you have recorded. A number of people is asking for that.
Well, I've put my number up.
Yeah.
I'll put it up again. So if you just WhatsApp me, 879. So that's it there in the group. So you can take down my number. Just WhatsApp me, and I will send you the snippet of where I'm actually talking about that particular prediction.
Oh, I've got that already.
And
yeah.
Yeah, some of you may.
I'm talking about. So Auntie Jean.
Yes.
This is Angela. We'd love to have the recording of this today's call. You know, the meeting.
We are recording it. Basically, you'll find it on YouTube on the Garvey Village and Social Enterprise channel. Okay, so give it a couple of days and I'll put it up. Okay, you see it there. But everybody, if you want to save the chat, you can save the chat by going onto the three dots at the side where it says file, and you can save the chat so that you can save all the information from today's presentations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good night all.
Good night all. Thank you, Jean. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to also hear you in Kechi, if you're still there. Haven't
Yes, I am. I'm here.
heard. Beautiful.
So wonderful.
Just close that.
Thank you all. Lovely.